Good day, lovely viewers. Welcome to Ben 10 What If? We have an exciting story lined up for you today. What if Ben 10 was an Avenger from the start? Your engagement means the world to us. Like, comment, and subscribe to help us grow and bring you more amazing content. Without wasting any time, let's start. Chapter 2, Trials by Fire and Ice. Mr. Tennyson. Are you planning to join us in the present, or should I mark you absent in spirit as well as mind? Ben's head snapped up from his desk. Mrs. Peterson glared at him from the front of the math classroom, her chalk poised mid-equation. Every eye in the room turned to him. Sorry, Mrs. Peterson, Ben mumbled, straightening up. Just didn't get much sleep last night. Fighting Hydra agents until 3 a.m. will do that to you, he thought, absently adjusting the sleeve of his jacket to better hide the omnitrix. Perhaps you could demonstrate problem 14 for the class, since you're clearly too advanced for my lesson. Mrs. Peterson gestured to the board. Ben slouched to the front of the class, taking the chalk with a sigh. Staring at the algebraic equation, he wished he could transform into gray matter right now. 6 months as an Avenger, and pre-algebra was still his toughest opponent. Any day now, Mr. Tennyson. As Ben struggled through the problem, his phone vibrated in his pocket with the special pattern that meant one thing: Avengers business. His heart raced, but he forced himself to finish the problem, incorrectly, judging by Mrs. Peterson's disapproving look, before returning to his seat. The moment the lunch bell rang, Ben bolted from the classroom, ducking into the empty science lab. He pulled out his secure Stark phone, checking the alert. Unidentified energy signature detected in upstate New York, the message read. All available assets report to Avengers Tower. Priority level, yellow. Ben grinned. Yellow meant serious but not world-ending. Perfect for a Friday afternoon. He dialed the emergency excuse hotline Tony had set up. Within minutes, the school office received a call that Ben's Uncle Phil needed to pick him up for a family emergency. 20 minutes later, a nondescript black car pulled up to the school. Ben slid into the back seat, finding Natasha behind the wheel. Nice ride, he quipped. Very inconspicuous. Because nothing says secret mission like picking up a kid in the Quinjet, she replied dryly, pulling away from the curb. Busy week at school. 3 tests, 2 quizzes, and I'm pretty sure my math teacher hates me. Ben fastened his seatbelt. So, what's the deal with this energy signature? Someone's been hitting research facilities. For so far. They're stealing specialized equipment and leaving behind some interesting calling cards. She handed him a tablet showing security footage of a woman with pale blue skin, seemingly generating ice from her hands. Cool. Ben exclaimed, then quickly added, I mean, not cool. Bad. Definitely bad. Natasha's lips twitched in an almost smile. The latest target is a Stark Industries advanced materials lab. Tony wants us on site within the hour. Finally, some action. Ben slumped back dramatically. Do you know how boring 6th grade is when you fought alien warlords? Extremely, I imagine, Natasha replied. But remember our deal. Ben sighed. Grades first, hero stuff second. I know. How's that math grade? Improving? Natasha arched an eyebrow. I'll study harder, Ben promised. After we catch the ice lady. The Avengers assembled in the conference room of the upstate New York facility, with holograms of the team members who couldn't attend in person floating around the table. Tony Stark stood at the head, rapidly swiping through security footage and data readouts. Our Ice Queen has been busy, Tony explained. First hit was a cryogenics lab in Boston. Second, a superconductor facility in Pittsburgh. Third, an experimental materials lab in Chicago. Now she's in our backyard. What's she after? Steve asked, studying the footage. Components, Bruce Banner replied, his hologram gesturing to a schematic. Each piece she's stolen is part of an advanced cooling system. Put them all together, and you could maintain temperatures approaching absolute zero indefinitely. Who is she? Ben asked, leaning forward eagerly. Dr. Crystal Frost, Natasha answered, pulling up a personnel file. Former research scientist specializing in cryogenic suspension. Reported missing after a lab accident 18 months ago. Presumed dead until she showed up freezing guard solid last week. Another person transformed by their own experiments, Steve noted grimly. Like me, but with less control, Bruce added. Ben studied the woman in the footage. Unlike most villains they faced, she didn't look angry or evil, just determined, and maybe a little sad. So what's the plan? Clint asked from his hologram. Standard containment protocol. We need to know what she's building and who she's building it for, Tony replied. The tech she's assembling goes beyond just keeping things cold. We'll split into teams, Steve decided. Tony, you and Bruce secure the sensitive materials in the lab. Natasha, surveillance. Ben, you're with me on intercept if she appears. What about me? Came a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Gwen Tennyson standing there, arms crossed. Gwen. Ben jumped up. What are you doing here? School field trip to New York, she explained with a smirk. When Grandpa told me you were on a mission, I figured I'd see what's so special that my cousin gets to skip school. You can't be here, Ben protested. This is Avengers business. Actually, Tony interrupted, we could use another set of eyes on the monitoring systems. Your cousin has proven quite adept with our interfaces. Ben's jaw dropped. You've been letting Gwen help. On the analytical side only, Steve clarified. No field work. I've been interning remotely with Dr. Banner on weekends, Gwen explained smugly. Some of us like to use our brains alongside our special abilities. Since when do you have special abilities? Ben demanded. Gwen's eyes glowed briefly with a pinkish light. Grandpa Max has been teaching me some things too. Before Ben could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Perimeter breach, Jarvis announced. Thermal anomalies detected at the north entrance. She's here, Tony snapped, his armor assembling around him. Positions, everyone. Ben pushed aside his shock about Gwen and reached for the Omnitrix. Which alien should I use? Something that can handle extreme cold, Steve advised, grabbing his shield. But wait for my signal. Ben nodded, already cycling through his options as they moved out. The north entrance had been transformed into a winter wonderland, if wonderlands included security guards frozen in blocks of ice and foot-thick frost covering every surface. Crystal Frost stood in the center of the chaos, methodically freezing the lock mechanisms on a reinforced door. Crystal Frost. Steve called out, shield ready. Stand down. We just want to talk. Frost turned slowly, revealing her ice-blue skin and white hair. Crystalline patterns spread across her face like delicate frost on a window. Captain America, she acknowledged, her voice echoing strangely as if through an ice cave. I have no quarrel with the Avengers. Leave me to my work. Can't do that, Tony replied, hovering above. Those are my toys you're trying to steal. Frost sighed, her breath visible despite the already freezing temperature. Then we do this the hard way. She thrust her hands forward, sending a wave of intense cold toward them. Steve raised his shield, which immediately frosted over. Now, Ben. Steve shouted. Ben had already selected his transformation, slamming down on the Omnitrix. Green light flashed, and heat blast emerged, flames roaring to life. Time to melt this popsicle stand. Ben shouted, hurling fireballs toward Frost. She countered with blasts of freezing energy, creating clouds of steam where fire met ice. The temperature in the room fluctuated wildly as the elemental powers clashed. You brought a child to this fight? Frost asked, actually sounding concerned. Even one with such, unique abilities. I'm not a child, Ben protested, increasing the intensity of his flames. I'm an Avenger. Frost's expression softened momentarily before hardening again. Then I'm sorry for what must happen. She slammed her hands into the ground, sending a wave of ice racing across the floor. Ben hovered above it on jets of flame, but Steve and Natasha had to leap onto higher ground to avoid being frozen in place. We need to end this quickly, Natasha called out, firing her widow's bites at Frost. The electric charges seemed to disrupt her ice generation momentarily. Tony swooped in, repulsors charged. Let's warm things up. As the Avengers coordinated their attack, Ben noticed something odd. Frost wasn't attacking indiscriminately. She was creating barriers, separating them from the lab she was trying to access, rather than trying to hurt them directly. Wait! Ben called out. I don't think she's trying to. His observation was cut short as Frost suddenly clutched at her chest, her ice powers flaring uncontrollably. Spikes of ice shot in all directions. Something's wrong with her. Ben shouted, creating a wall of flame to melt incoming ice shards. Frost fell to one knee, frost patterns spreading across her body more rapidly. No, not now. She gasped. A device on her wrist beeped urgently. She looked up at the Avengers with something like desperation in her eyes. I need what's in that lab, she said urgently. It's not what you think. Before anyone could respond, the wall behind her exploded inward. Through the dust and debris emerged a massive figure in red and black armor. Your time is up, Dr. Frost, rumbled a deep, menacing voice. Ben felt his flames dim in shock as he recognized the figure from the briefings he'd received. Vilgax. The alien warlord towered over Frost, his tentacled face somehow even more terrifying in person than in the holographic images Ben had studied. Muscular and imposing, covered in armor that gleamed with alien technology, Vilgax radiated power and menace. The components, Vilgax demanded, extending a clawed hand toward Frost. Now. I haven't acquired the final piece, she replied, struggling to her feet. Then you have failed me. Vilgax raised a device that looked disturbingly like a weapon. Stop! Ben shouted, propelling himself between Frost and Vilgax without thinking. You want to hurt someone, try me. Vilgax's red eyes narrowed, then widened in recognition as they fixed on the Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest. The Omnitrix, he growled, suddenly ignoring Frost completely. After all this time, I found it. Bonded to a human child, no less. I'm not just any human, Ben retorted, flames burning brighter. I'm an Avenger. Ben, get back. Steve shouted, throwing his shield at Vilgax. The warlord caught it one-handed and tossed it aside like a frisbee. Primitive weapons, he scoffed. This world's defenders are as pathetic as I expected. Iron Man blasted Vilgax with his repulsors, only for them to dissipate against some kind of energy shield. Advanced Galvan shield tech, Vilgax noted, almost bored. Your weapons cannot harm me. How about this? Ben yelled, unleashing his full power as heat blast, sending a massive wave of fire at the alien. Vilgax stood unmoved as the flames washed over his shield. Interesting. A pyronite form. One of the more combat-capable transformations. Ben faltered. You know what I am. I know everything about the Omnitrix, Vilgax replied, taking a step forward. I have hunted it across galaxies. And now, child, you will surrender it to me. Not happening. Ben created a ring of fire around himself as Steve and Natasha flanked Vilgax. The warlord seemed unconcerned by the coordinated attack forming around him. Dr. Frost, he called, not taking his eyes off Ben, your contract is terminated. He pressed a button on his gauntlet, and Frost screamed as the device on her wrist pulsed with energy. Ice spread rapidly across her body, not from her powers but consuming her. In seconds, she was completely encased in a block of solid ice. What did you do to her? Ben demanded, horrified. She was useful only as long as she could acquire what I needed, Vilgax replied coldly. Now I have found something far more valuable. He lunged forward with shocking speed for his size, smashing through Ben's fire barrier and grabbing him by the throat. The Omnitrix, Vilgax demanded, squeezing. Remove it, or I will remove your arm to get it. Ben struggled, his flames dimming as Vilgax's grip tightened. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest began blinking red, the transformation was timing out. Let him go. Steve's shield, recovered from where Vilgax had tossed it, slammed into the warlord's back with enough force to stagger him. Tony fired a unibeam directly at Vilgax's face, momentarily overloading his shield. Natasha used the distraction to throw a series of specialized discs that attached to Vilgax's armor and detonated, disrupting its systems. The combined attack forced Vilgax to release Ben, who fell to the floor gasping just as the Omnitrix timed out, returning him to human form. You are more organized than expected, Vilgax acknowledged, systems in his armor recalibrating. But ultimately futile. He raised his gauntlet again, and a massive energy wave pulsed outward, sending the Avengers flying backward. Tony's armor sparked with electrical failures, and Steve's shield arm went temporarily numb from the impact. Vilgax turned to Ben, who scrambled backward, the Omnitrix still flashing red. Now, child, we finish this. The warlord reached down. Suddenly, a bubble of pinkish energy surrounded Ben, pushing Vilgax back. Gwen stood in the doorway, hands outstretched and glowing with the same energy. Get away from my cousin, she shouted. Vilgax studied her with surprise. Anodite energy? On Earth? He looked between the cousins, calculating. This planet grows more interesting. A thunderous crack interrupted the standoff as the block of ice containing crystal frost began to split. Fractures spread across its surface, light glowing from within. With an explosive burst, the ice shattered, revealing Frost transformed, her body now pure crystalline ice, power radiating from her in waves of cold so intense that moisture in the air froze instantly. You tried to kill me, she said to Vilgax, her voice resonating like wine through an ice cave. That was a mistake. She unleashed a blast of cold that even Vilgax had to defend against, ice forming on his shield and armor on contact. Insolent human, Vilgax snarled, his system straining against the temperature drop. You were nothing but a tool. A tool that's about to break you, Frost replied, pushing her power further. Ben watched in amazement as Vilgax's seemingly impenetrable defense began to crack under the extreme cold. The warlord's armor frosted over, joints stiffening. The Omnitrix suddenly beeped, turning green again. Ben didn't hesitate, transforming into 4 arms, his massive red 4-armed form ready for battle. Round 2, Squid Face. Ben shouted, charging forward. The combined assault from Ben and Frost drove Vilgax back. The other Avengers recovered, joining the attack from all sides. For a moment, it seemed they might actually defeat the alien warlord. Then Vilgax roared in fury, power surging through his armor. A shockwave knocked everyone back as his systems overloaded to counter the freezing attack. Enough games, he growled, tapping controls on his gauntlet. We will continue this when the odds are more favorable. A beam of light enveloped him from above, a transport beam from his cloaked ship. This isn't over, wielder of the Omnitrix, Vilgax promised as he began to dematerialize. I will return for what is mine. And when I do, not even your Avengers can save you. With those ominous words, he vanished, teleported back to his ship. Ben changed back to human form, staring at the spot where Vilgax had stood. Well, that was intense. Steve helped Natasha to her feet while Tony ran diagnostics on his damaged armor. Everyone alright? Define, alright, Tony muttered, flexing a malfunctioning gauntlet. Frost stood apart from them, her body still crystalline but slowly returning to her more human appearance. The frost patterns on her skin receded, though her blue coloration remained. You helped us, Ben said, approaching her cautiously. Why? Vilgax betrayed me, she replied simply. And unlike him, I don't want to see children harmed in my quest. What quest? Steve asked, keeping a careful distance. What are you trying to build, Dr. Frost? She hesitated, then reached into her pocket and withdrew a small device. A cure, she said softly. Or at least, a treatment. The device projected a hologram showing cellular structures being damaged by extreme cold, then stabilized by the very cooling system she'd been stealing parts to build. The accident that changed me, she explained. It's progressive. Without intervention, my body will eventually freeze from the inside out. Vilgax promised to help me build a stabilization system in exchange for other services. What kind of other services? Natasha asked sharply. He wanted me to acquire certain Earth technologies. Nothing that seemed dangerous on its own. Frost looked down. I was desperate. Why not come to us? Tony asked. Stark Industries has resources for exactly this kind of research. Would you have helped the Ice Woman robbing laboratories? Frost countered. Fair point, Tony conceded. Ben stepped forward. We can still help you. That's what heroes do, right? He looked to Steve for confirmation. Captain America nodded slowly. We'll need you to surrender yourself to custody, Dr. Frost. But yes, we can help. Frost considered this, then nodded. I accept your terms, Captain. She turned to Ben with a small smile. You're brave, young Avenger. But Vilgax is unlike anything you've faced before. I can handle him, Ben said confidently. No one can handle Vilgax, Frost warned. He's destroyed entire worlds for less than what he wants from you. Ben glanced at the Omnitrix. What exactly does he want with this thing anyway? Frost's expression darkened. He never shared his full plans. But he spoke of it as the ultimate weapon, something that would make him unstoppable. Great, Tony sighed. Another megalomaniac after ultimate power. Just what we needed. At least we stopped him this time, Ben pointed out. We didn't stop anything, Natasha corrected. He retreated. There's a difference. And he'll be back, Steve added grimly. Which means we need to be ready. Ben nodded, a mixture of excitement and apprehension churning in his stomach. His first encounter with Vilgax had been terrifying, yes, but also exhilarating. This was what being an Avenger was all about, facing the big threats, protecting the world. As S.H.I.E.L.D. agents arrived to secure the facility and take Frost into protective custody, Ben caught Gwen's eye across the room. She gave him a small nod of acknowledgement. Maybe having his know-it-all cousin around wouldn't be so bad after all. Especially with Vilgax coming back. Absolutely not. Steve's voice echoed through the conference room at Avengers Tower. He's 11 years old. Almost 12, Ben interjected from his seat at the table. Not helping, Tony muttered. 2 days after the encounter with Vilgax and Frost, the Avengers had convened to discuss strategy. The meeting had quickly devolved into an argument about Ben's role in the coming conflict. Vilgax is targeting Ben specifically, Natasha pointed out calmly. Keeping him sidelined won't keep him safe, it might make him more vulnerable. I'm not suggesting we lock him in a bunker, Steve countered. But deliberately putting him in Vilgax's path is reckless. I'm sitting right here, Ben reminded them, waving his hand. Don't I get a say? All eyes turned to him. Ben took a deep breath. Look, I know Vilgax is dangerous. But this is my fight too. The Omnitrix chose me for a reason. That's not actually clear, Bruce noted, adjusting his glasses. From what Max has told us, the device was intended for someone else entirely. Not helping either, Doc, Tony said. Max Tennyson, who had flown in from Plumber headquarters after the Vilgax incident, placed a hand on Ben's shoulder. What is clear is that the Omnitrix is bonded to Ben now, and Vilgax won't stop coming for it. Then we remove it, Steve suggested. The room fell silent. Can we even do that? Clint asked from his perch on a stool in the corner. Negative, Max shook his head. The creator, Azimuth, designed it with fail-safes to prevent forced removal. Any attempt could kill Ben. So what options does that leave us? Bruce asked. We train, Ben said firmly, standing up. We prepare. And when Vilgax comes back, we kick his butt. Tony snorted with barely suppressed laughter while Steve pinched the bridge of his nose. The enthusiasm is admirable, Fury said from the head of the table. But we need more than bravado, son. I'm not just being enthusiastic, Ben insisted. I've been training for 6 months. I know all my aliens now, their strengths, weaknesses, how to use them tactically. I'm ready for this. He has improved significantly, Natasha acknowledged. His combat ratings are exceptional for his age group. His age group shouldn't be fighting intergalactic warlords, Steve maintained. But Dr. Banner's research shows the Omnitrix might have capabilities we haven't explored, Gwen spoke up from where she sat next to Bruce. If Ben could master those, he'd have an advantage even Vilgax wouldn't expect. Ben stared at his cousin in surprise. Are you defending me? Gwen shrugged. I'm being logical. Besides, if you're going to get yourself killed fighting some tentacle-faced alien, I at least want you to have a fighting chance. Such a supportive cousin, Ben muttered. Enough, Fury interrupted. Here's how we proceed. Ben continues advanced training, focusing on countering threats like Vilgax. The rest of the team works on contingency plans and countermeasures. He turned to Ben directly. You will not engage Vilgax alone under any circumstances. You will follow orders in the field. And you will maintain your cover as a normal 6th grader, including keeping your grades up. Are we clear? Crystal clear, Ben nodded soberly. Dismissed, Fury concluded. Dr. Banner, I'd like your latest findings on the Omnitrix capabilities. As the meeting broke up, Ben caught up with Gwen in the hallway. So, magical powers, huh? He asked awkwardly. When did that happen? Around the same time you found the Omnitrix, she replied. Grandpa Max noticed and started teaching me. Said it runs in the family. And you didn't tell me because. Gwen raised an eyebrow. You were a little busy playing superhero with the Avengers. Besides, we don't exactly have heart-to-hearts, Ben. True, he conceded. But still. Magic? That's pretty cool. Thanks, she said, looking surprised by the compliment. Your watch isn't so bad either. They walked in silence for a moment. Vilgax is really coming back, isn't he? Gwen finally asked. Yeah, Ben nodded. But next time, we'll be ready. We. The Avengers, he clarified, then after a moment added, and maybe you too, if you want. Gwen smiled slightly. Someone has to keep you from getting yourself killed. For the next 2 weeks, Ben's training intensified dramatically. Each Avenger contributed specialized sessions focused on countering Vilgax's abilities. Steve drilled him on battlefield awareness and tactical retreats. Sometimes the bravest thing is knowing when to fall back, he insisted, though Ben remained skeptical of this philosophy. Natasha focused on exploiting weaknesses in supposedly impenetrable defenses. Everything has a vulnerability, she taught him. Your job is to find it before your opponent finds yours. Tony analyzed the energy readings from Vilgax's armor, helping Ben identify which of his alien forms might be most effective against the warlord's technology. Upgrade could potentially hijack his systems, Tony suggested during one session. And Diamond Head's crystalline structure might withstand his energy weapons better than your other forms. Even Gwen joined the training, her magical abilities providing a different perspective. Magic and alien tech don't always mix well, she explained, demonstrating by disrupting a drone with a pulse of pink energy. Find the right frequency, and you might short-circuit his fancy armor. Through it all, Ben pushed himself harder than ever before. The encounter with Vilgax had shaken him more than he cared to admit. For all his bravado in the meeting, he knew he'd been outmatched. Again, Ben gasped, picking himself up after being thrown across the training room by a Vilgax simulation for the 5th time. "Maybe we should take a break," Steve suggested, concerned by Ben's intensity. "Vilgax won't take a break," Ben replied, transforming into Diamond Head. "Let's go again." Meanwhile, Dr. Crystal Frost had been moved to a secure shield facility where she could receive treatment while helping develop countermeasures against Vilgax's technology. Despite initial mistrust, she had proven to be a valuable ally, her knowledge of Vilgax's methods providing crucial insights. "His armor incorporates technology from at least 6 different worlds," she explained to Tony and Bruce as they reviewed schematics. "The shield generator is Galvan, the strength enhancer's Tetramand, the neural interface cerebrocrustation. He's basically cherry-picked the best tech in the galaxy," Tony observed. "Not unlike someone else I know." He glanced meaningfully at Bruce. "The Hulk is a bit different from alien tech," Bruce replied dryly. Frost nodded toward a specific component in the schematic. "This is what you should focus on. The power distribution node. It manages the energy flow between systems. Overload it, and even Vilgax becomes vulnerable." "Easier said than done," Tony noted. "How do we overload something designed to handle the energy output of multiple alien technologies?" A small smile played across Frost's blue lips. "With extreme cold. Superconductors become resistors at certain temperatures." Bruce's eyes widened in understanding. "That's why he needed you. Your powers could disrupt his enemy's technology. And stabilize experimental weapons," Frost confirmed. "Until he found something more valuable." "The Omnitrix," Tony concluded. "The Omnitrix," Frost agreed grimly. "And he won't stop coming for it." 3 weeks after the encounter, Ben was finally starting to feel confident again. His training was showing results. He moved more efficiently in each alien form, transitioned between them more strategically, and even his human form had developed muscle memory for combat situations. School, unfortunately, hadn't gotten any more interesting. If anything, the contrast between Avengers training and social studies made the latter even more unbearable. The Treaty of Paris was signed in what year? Mrs. Gillespie droned, scanning the classroom for victims. Ben stifled a yawn, his mind wandering to that morning's training session where he'd finally managed to breach the simulated Vilgax's defenses using a combination of XLR-8 speed and 4 arms strength. "Mr. Tennyson." Mrs. Gillespie called, snapping Ben back to attention. "The Treaty of Paris? 1783. Ben guessed, grateful for Gwen's insistence that he at least glance at his textbooks occasionally. "Correct," the teacher acknowledged with surprise. "Moving on." Ben's phone vibrated in his pocket, not the Avengers alert pattern, but a message from Tony, lab after school. "New toy to show you." Ben perked up instantly. Tony's new toys were always worth the trip to the tower. The rest of the school day crawled by, but finally the bell rang. Ben raced out, finding Happy Hogan waiting with a car. "Hey, Happy. What's the rush?" Ben asked, sliding into the back seat. "No rush," Happy replied, pulling into traffic. "Just Mr. Stark being Mr. Stark. Wants you there 5 minutes ago." When they reached Avengers Tower, Ben found Tony in his lab surrounded by holographic displays showing the Omnitrix from various angles. "There he is!" Tony exclaimed. "How was prison, school?" "Hilarious," Ben deadpanned. "What's the new toy?" Tony grinned, dismissing the holograms with a wave. "Remember how we talked about improving your transformation efficiency? Well, I've been working with your grandfather and Dr. Banner on something special." He unveiled a sleek silver device about the size of a wristwatch. "The Omnitrix already gives me aliens," Ben pointed out, unimpressed. "What does this do?" "This," Tony said proudly, is the biomimetic optimization booster. BOB for short. You named it, Bob? Ben asked skeptically. Focus, kid. This device syncs with the Omnitrix, analyzing its transformations and helping you optimize their usage. Think of it as training wheels for your alien forms. Ben frowned. I don't need training wheels. I've been doing fine with my aliens. You've been doing well, Tony corrected. This will help you do better. It provides real-time analysis of your transformations, suggests energy allocation improvements, even helps maintain forms longer. Seriously? Ben's interest was piqued despite his initial skepticism. The Omnitrix's time limit had always been his biggest frustration. Seriously, Tony confirmed. Try it on. Ben strapped the device to his opposite wrist. It immediately lit up, interfacing wirelessly with the Omnitrix. Now transform, Tony instructed. Let's see what BOB can do. Ben cycled through his options, selecting Upgrade, the liquid metal alien that could merge with technology. As he transformed, the BOB device hummed, sending pulses of energy that seemed to stabilize the transformation. Whoa, Ben said, his upgrade voice echoing metallically. I feel different. More controlled. That's the idea, Tony explained. The Omnitrix gives you the transformation, but BOB helps you optimize it. You're burning less energy maintaining the form, which should extend your time limit. Ben examined his liquid metal hands with newfound appreciation. This is awesome. Can I try it in the field? That's why we made it, Tony replied. Just remember, it's still experimental. Any problems, any at all, you deactivate it immediately. Got it, Ben nodded, already imagining how this would help him against Vilgax. Can I test it in the training room? Tony checked his watch. Cap scheduled a team exercise in 15 minutes anyway. Perfect timing. The training session started well. Ben demonstrated his enhanced control with several transformations, impressing even Natasha with the precision of his movements. The BOB device is working better than expected, Tony told Steve as they watched Ben transform into Diamond Head and create crystalline structures with unprecedented detail. It's helping him access deeper functions of the alien DNA. It's impressive, Steve acknowledged. But I'm still concerned about field deployment. If it malfunctions, it won't, Tony assured him. We've run every simulation possible. On the training floor, Ben switched to XLR-8, racing around the room at speeds that left afterimages. He felt incredible, faster, stronger, more in tune with his alien forms than ever before. This is amazing, he called out, skidding to a halt in front of the team. I could stay like this for hours. As if on cue, the Omnitrix symbol on his chest flickered, not the usual red warning of a timeout, but a strange purple pulse. Ben felt a surge of energy through his body, simultaneously exhilarating and concerning. Guys, he called out. Something weird is happening. The BOB device on his wrist sparked, its display showing error messages. Before anyone could respond, Ben felt himself transforming involuntarily, shifting rapidly between alien forms. Diamond Head. 4 arms. Heat Blast. Gray Matter. Ghost Freak. Each transformation lasted only seconds before switching to another. Shut it down. Steve ordered. I'm trying. Tony replied, fingers flying over a control pad. It's not responding. Ben struggled to regain control as his body continued to shift between forms. Each transformation felt different now, wilder, more instinctive, less human. He could feel the alien consciousnesses rising to the surface, threatening to overwhelm his own mind. Get it off him. Natasha shouted. Clint tried to approach, but had to dodge a blast of flame as Ben briefly transformed into Heat Blast before shifting to Ripjaws, then Wildmutt. Ben. Gwen called from the observation deck. Focus. Remember who you are. Through the chaos of shifting forms, Ben heard his cousin's voice. He concentrated, fighting against the malfunctioning technology. With tremendous effort, he reached for the BOB device on his human wrist, which briefly appeared between transformations, and tore it off. The device clattered to the floor, still sparking. Ben collapsed, reverting to human form, the Omnitrix flashing red. Ben! Steve was at his side instantly. Are you alright? That, Ben gasped, was not fun. Tony picked up the damaged device, examining it with a frown. This doesn't make sense. The failsafes should have prevented this kind of interaction. Unless something interfered, Bruce suggested, joining them from the observation deck. An outside signal perhaps? A chill ran down Ben's spine. Like someone trying to hack the Omnitrix. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Vilgax, Natasha said softly. The signal originated from orbit, Tony confirmed, reviewing the data hours later in the secure conference room. Very faint, very sophisticated. We wouldn't have detected it if not for the BOB device amplifying it. So Vilgax tried to take control of the Omnitrix remotely? Steve asked. And nearly succeeded, Max added grimly. If Ben hadn't removed the device when he did. The implications hung heavy in the air. Ben sat quietly, still shaken by the experience. The feeling of losing control of his transformations, of the alien minds threatening to take over, had terrified him more than any battle. Silver lining, Tony offered, we now know more about how Vilgax plans to acquire the Omnitrix. And thanks to the BOB device's data collection, we can develop countermeasures. So my nearly turning into a permanent alien blender was actually helpful, Ben remarked sarcastically. Great. It was, Fury stated bluntly, entering the room. And it gives us an opportunity. What kind of opportunity? Max asked warily. Fury displayed a holographic star chart. We've triangulated Vilgax's position based on the signal. He's in high Earth orbit, likely preparing for another attempt. So we shoot down his ship? Clint suggested. Impossible with current Earth technology, Max shook his head. Vilgax's ship has defenses beyond anything we have. We don't need to shoot it down, Fury replied. We need to get aboard. All eyes turned to him in surprise. You want to infiltrate an alien warship? Steve asked incredulously. I want to end this threat before it escalates further, Fury corrected. Dr. Frost's information gives us a vulnerability in Vilgax's systems. A small team could exploit it, disable his ship, and capture him. That's insanely dangerous, Bruce pointed out. Less dangerous than waiting for him to attack on his terms, Natasha countered, already seeing the strategy. Ben leaned forward. I should go. Absolutely not, Steve and Max said simultaneously. Hear me out, Ben insisted. Vilgax wants the Omnitrix, right? So he's not going to blow up a ship I'm on. Plus, I can use upgrade to interface directly with his systems. And Gray Matter would understand his tech better than anyone else here. The adults exchanged looks. The boy has valid points, Thor noted, speaking up for the first time. The element of surprise would favor us. Vilgax would not expect his quarry to come directly to him. It's too risky, Steve maintained. Is it riskier than letting Vilgax continue to develop ways to control the Omnitrix remotely? Tony asked. Because that's what he's doing up there right now. Silence fell over the room as they considered the options. I can do this, Ben said quietly but firmly. I've been training for months. You've all taught me everything you know. Let me use it. Fury studied Ben for a long moment before nodding slowly. Tennyson goes, but not alone. Stark, Romanoff, you'll accompany him. Minimal team, maximum efficiency. And how exactly do we reach an alien warship in orbit? Natasha asked. Tony grinned. Leave that to me. The plan came together quickly. Using data from the BOB device and Dr. Frost's insights, Tony modified one of his deep space armor prototypes to mask its energy signature, making it appear as if the Omnitrix was malfunctioning, bait that Vilgax wouldn't be able to resist. The ship will automatically lock onto the Omnitrix signal and teleport it aboard, Max explained as they prepared. It's a security measure to recover the device if it ever activated near Vilgax's fleet. Which means Ben goes first, Natasha noted, checking her specialized equipment. We'll need precise timing to follow. Ben nodded, trying to project confidence despite the nervous fluttering in his stomach. The plan was risky, depending on split-second timing and perfect execution. But it was also their best chance to end the Vilgax threat before it escalated further. Remember the mission parameters, Fury instructed as they prepared to depart. Get aboard, disable the ship's main systems using Dr. Frost's information, and extract. Do not engage Vilgax directly unless absolutely necessary. What if he's right there when I teleport in? Ben asked. Then you stall, Natasha replied. Buy time for us to arrive. And if that doesn't work? Tony placed a hand on Ben's shoulder. Then you do what you've been training to do. You adapt. The final preparations were made in Stark's private launch facility. Ben would activate a specific sequence on the Omnitrix that would amplify its signal, making it irresistible to Vilgax's sensors. Once teleported aboard, he would transform into upgrade and interface with the ship's systems, creating a backdoor for Tony and Natasha to follow using modified teleportation tech. Ready, kid? Tony asked as Ben took his position in the center of the launch pad. Ben took a deep breath, looking at the assembled Avengers. Steve still looked concerned but gave him a nod of support. Clint offered a thumbs up. Bruce managed a nervous smile. As I'll ever be, Ben replied, raising the Omnitrix. It's hero time. He activated the sequence Tony and Max had programmed. The Omnitrix glowed brightly, emitting a distinctive energy pattern designed to mimic a malfunction. For several tense seconds, nothing happened. Then a beam of light enveloped Ben, and he vanished. Ben materialized in what appeared to be a teleportation chamber aboard Vilgax's ship. Instantly, alarms blared, and red lights flashed throughout the room. He had seconds before security would arrive. Okay, step 1 complete, he muttered, activating the Omnitrix. Now for step 2. He transformed into upgrade, his liquid metal form immediately sensing the abundance of technology surrounding him. Following the plan, he merged with the teleportation platform, his consciousness extending into the ship's systems. The alien technology was unlike anything he'd encountered before, complex, multi-layered, with security protocols that would have been impenetrable to human hackers. But as upgrade, Ben could interface directly, bypassing firewalls through physical connection. There you are, he thought as he located the security protocols governing teleportation. With careful precision, he created a backdoor, a vulnerability that would allow Tony's tech to penetrate the ship's defenses. The task complete, Ben separated from the platform just as the chamber doors slid open. 2 robotic drones entered, weapons raised. Without hesitation, Ben merged with one of them, taking control of its systems and using it to disable the other. Intruder alert neutralized, he reported through the drone's communication system, mimicking its electronic voice. Resuming patrol. Using the hijacked drone as cover, Ben navigated through the ship's corridors, following the schematic Dr. Frost had provided. His objective, the power distribution node that controlled Vilgax's primary systems. The ship was massive, a labyrinth of alien technology and strange geometries. Through the drone's sensors, Ben detected numerous life forms, not all of them seeming to be willing crew members. Some readings suggested prisoners or test subjects. Change of plans, Ben muttered to himself, directing the drone toward the life sign readings. If Vilgax had prisoners, freeing them was now part of the mission. He reached a secured door marked with alien symbols. Using the drone's access codes, he opened it, revealing a detention block containing several cells. Inside each was a different alien species, some humanoid, others completely foreign to Ben's experience. What is this, some kind of space zoo? Ben wondered, checking for guards. Seeing none, he separated from the drone and transformed into gray matter, a small, frog-like alien with enhanced intelligence. In this form, he could better understand the alien technology controlling the cells. Fascinating, he murmured, examining the control panel. This detention system incorporates Galvan design principles but modified with crude overrides. Typical Vilgax, stealing technology then ruining it with brute force modifications. Within minutes, gray matter had decoded the security system. "Attention alien prisoners," he announced through the intercom. "Stand clear of your cell doors. Freedom coming in 3, 2, 1. The cell doors slid open simultaneously. Confused aliens emerged cautiously, staring at the tiny gray matter with mixtures of surprise, suspicion, and hope. "Who are you?" asked a blue-skinned humanoid. "Ben Tennyson of Earth," gray matter replied. "Currently using the Galvan form from the Omnitrix. I'm here to stop Vilgax." A murmur ran through the freed prisoners at the mention of the Omnitrix. "The Omnitrix is real?" a crystalline being asked in awe. "We thought it merely a legend." "Very real," gray matter confirmed. "And Vilgax wants it, which is why you were all probably captured, to study your DNA or use you as leverage. The escape pods are on level 3, offered a reptilian alien. We can guide you." Gray matter shook his head. "I'm not leaving yet. I have a mission to complete and teammates arriving soon. But you should all get to safety." He quickly explained how to reach the escape pods, then transformed back into upgrade to merge with the drone again. "Go now, before Vilgax realizes what's happening." As the prisoners hurried away, Ben directed the drone toward the power distribution node. According to the plan, Tony and Natasha should be arriving any minute. He needed to be in position. Suddenly, the drone's sensors detected a massive energy spike ahead, directly where he needed to go. The corridor darkened, and a familiar imposing figure stepped into view. "I knew the Omnitrix signal was too convenient," Vilgax rumbled, his red eyes narrowing at the drone. "Did you really think I wouldn't recognize an intrusion into my systems, wielder of the Omnitrix?" Ben separated from the drone, returning to human form. "No point maintaining cover now. Can't blame a guy for trying," he shrugged, trying to project confidence despite the hammering of his heart. "Nice ship you've got here. Little overcomplicated though. Ever heard of user-friendly design?" Vilgax's face tentacles twitched in what might have been annoyance. "Your attempt at humor does not mask your fear, child. I can smell it." "That's probably just your face," Ben retorted, surreptitiously checking the Omnitrix. "Where were Tony and Natasha?" "Your diversion with the prisoners was transparent," Vilgax continued, stepping closer. "Did you really believe I would be concerned with such insignificant specimens when the Omnitrix itself has delivered itself to me?" Ben backed up slowly. "So you're just letting them escape? Not very evil overlord of you." "They will not get far," Vilgax replied dismissively. "My ship is designed to prevent unauthorized departures." "Yeah, about that," Ben grinned. "You might want to check your teleportation systems. I think you have more uninvited guests." On cue, a loud explosion rocked the ship. Emergency lights flashed, and the artificial gravity briefly fluctuated. "What have you done?" Vilgax demanded, momentarily distracted. Ben didn't waste the opportunity. He activated the Omnitrix, transforming into Heat Blast, and unleashed a massive fireball directly at Vilgax's face. The warlord raised his shield in time to block most of the blast, but the force still pushed him back several feet. "That's for Crystal Frost," Ben shouted, generating more flames. "And this is for Earth." He created a ring of intense fire around Vilgax, superheating the metal floor until it began to warp and buckle. Vilgax's shield protected him from direct damage, but even it had limits against sustained extreme temperatures. "Pathetic," Vilgax growled, activating systems in his armor. A wave of energy pulsed outward, extinguishing Ben's flames instantly. Your pyronite form is impressive, but ultimately futile against my technology. Ben switched tactics, transforming into XLR-8 and racing circles around Vilgax, creating a disorienting blur while looking for weaknesses in the warlord's armor. There, at the juncture between shoulder and neck, a cooling vent that seemed vulnerable. He changed direction abruptly, leaping onto Vilgax's back and transforming mid-air into 4 arms. With all 4 hands, he tore at the exposed vent, ripping components free before Vilgax could react. The warlord roared in pain and fury, reaching back to grab Ben and hurl him against the wall with devastating force. Ben crashed through several interior structures before coming to a stop, dazed but still in his 4 arms form. I intended to take the Omnitrix intact, Vilgax snarled, advancing menacingly, but I can remove it from your corpse just as easily. I don't think so, came Iron Man's voice as a repulsor blast struck Vilgax from behind. The armor-piercing shot, specifically designed based on Dr. Frost's information, penetrated the warlord's weakened shields. Natasha appeared from another corridor, firing specialized darts that attached to Vilgax's armor and delivered powerful electrical charges directly to the systems Ben had damaged. Took you long enough, Ben groaned, pulling himself up. Had to deal with the welcoming committee, Tony replied, hovering above Vilgax. But I see you kept our host entertained. Vilgax straightened, seemingly unfazed by the combined attack. The great Iron Man, he observed. Your technology is primitive, but your reputation extends even to the outer reaches. Pity it ends here. I've heard that before, Tony replied casually. Usually right before I prove them wrong. What followed was a coordinated assault that demonstrated months of training. Tony attacked from above, targeting the vulnerabilities in Vilgax's armor that Ben had created. Natasha moved with precise efficiency, each strike calculated to disrupt specific systems. Ben cycled through alien forms strategically, Diamond Head to withstand energy blasts, XLR-8 to create openings, Heat Blast to exploit the damaged cooling systems. For the first time, Vilgax seemed genuinely challenged. His movements became more desperate, his attacks less calculated. When Ben transformed into Cannonbolt, a living battering ram of nearly indestructible alien material, and slammed into Vilgax's chest at full speed, the warlord actually staggered backward. We've got him on the defensive, Tony called out. Push the advantage. Ben followed up with another Cannonbolt charge, but this time Vilgax was ready. He caught Ben mid-roll, the impact sending shockwaves through the corridor, and hurled him directly at Iron Man. The two collided painfully, tumbling across the deck. Change of plans, Natasha announced, activating a device on her belt. Time to implement Protocol Frost. A concentrated beam of energy shot from the device, striking the power distribution node behind Vilgax. The effect was immediate. Systems throughout the ship fluctuated wildly as supercooled particles disrupted the energy flow exactly as Dr. Frost had predicted. Vilgax's armor sparked and malfunctioned, its shield generators failing completely. For a crucial moment, the warlord was vulnerable. Now, Ben! Tony shouted. Ben transformed into Upgrade once more, flowing directly onto Vilgax's armor before the alien could react. He merged with the technology, infiltrating its systems from within. Get out of my armor! Vilgax roared, trying to physically tear the liquid metal alien from his body. I don't think so, Ben replied, his voice resonating from the armor itself. Let's see how you like a taste of your own medicine. Using his upgrade abilities, Ben redirected the armor's energy against its wearer. Vilgax convulsed as his own systems turned against him, delivering debilitating shocks to his nervous system. The ship's going critical, Natasha reported, checking readings on her device. The power disruption is cascading through all systems. Time to go, Tony decided, grabbing Natasha and preparing to activate their emergency teleport beacons. Ben, disengage now. Natasha ordered. Ben tried to separate from Vilgax's armor, but found himself strangely stuck, as if the systems were actively trying to absorb his upgrade form. "I can't," he called out, his voice distorting. "Something's wrong." Vilgax, despite being incapacitated, began to laugh, a deep, menacing sound. "Foolish child," he managed between shocks. "My armor is designed with mechamorph countermeasures. Did you think I would not prepare for all the Omnitrix's capabilities?" Ben struggled harder, feeling his consciousness being drawn deeper into the alien technology. It was like quicksand, the more he fought, the faster he sank. "Tony! Something's happening to the Omnitrix!" Ben called out in panic. The symbol on Vilgax's chest, where Ben's upgrade form had integrated, began to pulse with strange energy. "It's some kind of forced integration," Tony realized, scanning the phenomenon. "He's trying to absorb the Omnitrix through your upgrade form." "Not on my watch," Natasha declared, pulling a specialized device from her belt. "Sorry about this, Ben." She fired the device directly at the Omnitrix symbol. A pulse of disruptive energy struck it, forcing Ben's transformation to destabilize. With a painful jolt, he separated from Vilgax's armor, reverting to human form and collapsing to the deck. Vilgax, partially recovered, lunged for Ben. Tony intercepted, tackling the warlord and driving him back into the malfunctioning power node. A massive surge of energy exploded outward, engulfing them both. "Tony!" Ben shouted, struggling to his feet. The smoke cleared to reveal Iron Man's armor heavily damaged but still functional. Vilgax lay unconscious, his systems completely fried by the power surge. "That," Tony groaned as his faceplate retracted, "is going to leave a mark." "We need to move," Natasha insisted, helping Ben up. "This ship is tearing itself apart." Ben looked at the unconscious Vilgax. "What about him?" "Leave him," Tony said grimly. "The ship's teleportation systems are failing. We barely have enough power for our own extraction." "But, he survived worse than this, kid," Tony cut him off. "Right now, our priority is getting you and that watch safely back to Earth." Reluctantly, Ben nodded. As they activated their emergency teleport beacons, he took one last look at Vilgax. The warlord's eyes suddenly snapped open, locking with Ben's. "This is not over, Ben Tennyson," Vilgax growled, struggling to rise. "The Omnitrix will be mine." Then the teleportation beam enveloped them, and Vilgax's ship faded from view. The debriefing at Avengers Tower was tense. Despite technically accomplishing their mission, Vilgax's ship had been disabled, and the immediate threat neutralized. The operation hadn't gone entirely according to plan. "You freed prisoners without authorization," Fury noted, his expression stern. "Potentially alerting Vilgax to your presence prematurely." "They were innocent aliens he'd captured for experiments," Ben defended. "What was I supposed to do, leave them?" "You were supposed to follow the mission parameters," Fury replied, though his tone lacked real anger. "But I suppose that was an acceptable deviation under the circumstances." "The important thing," Steve interjected, "is that everyone returned safely. And we've dealt Vilgax a significant setback." "For now," Max cautioned. "Vilgax is nothing if not persistent. He'll rebuild, recalibrate, and return, possibly stronger than before." "But so will we," Tony pointed out. "We've learned valuable information about his technology, his tactics, and his obsession with the Omnitrix." Ben sat quietly, turning these thoughts over in his mind. The encounter with Vilgax had been even more dangerous than he'd anticipated. The warlord's attempt to absorb the Omnitrix through his upgrade form had been terrifying, like feeling parts of himself being torn away and consumed. "There's something else," he finally said, drawing everyone's attention. "When I was merged with Vilgax's armor, I saw things. Plans. Data." "What kind of data?" Bruce asked, suddenly alert. "About the Omnitrix," Ben explained. "Vilgax doesn't just want it as a weapon. He believes it contains something called the codon stream, a database of all sentient species in the galaxy. Max inhaled sharply. That's supposed to be just a rumor. It's not, Ben shook his head. The Omnitrix doesn't just transform me using pre-programmed DNA. It's connected to some kind of library, I guess. A massive collection of genetic information stored somewhere. And Vilgax wants access to that information, Natasha concluded. Genetic data on thousands of species, millions, Ben corrected. Millions of species, including some that are extinct everywhere except in the codon stream. The implications were staggering. With such information, Vilgax could create unstoppable biological weapons, clone extinct warrior races, or worse. This changes things, Fury stated flatly. The Omnitrix isn't just a transformation device, it's possibly the most valuable database in the galaxy. Ben looked down at the watch on his wrist, suddenly feeling the weight of responsibility even more acutely. So what do we do now? We continue as before, Steve said firmly. Train, prepare, protect. But with a better understanding of what we're protecting. And perhaps, Thor added thoughtfully, seek more information about this codon stream. Asgard's libraries may contain references to such technology. The meeting concluded with new security protocols and training regimens. As the team dispersed, Gwen approached Ben. So, she said, bumping his shoulder lightly. Fought an alien warlord on his own ship. Pretty impressive for a doofus. Ben managed a tired smile. Thanks. Couldn't have done it without the team, though. That's surprisingly mature of you to admit. Yeah, well, Ben shrugged, nearly getting absorbed by evil alien tech gives you perspective. Gwen's expression grew serious. Grandpa told me what happened with the upgrade form. Are you okay? I guess, Ben replied, flexing his wrist. The Omnitrix seemed normal now, but the memory of Vilgax's attempted absorption lingered. It was weird, like he wasn't just trying to take the watch, he was trying to take me with it. Maybe the Omnitrix is more connected to you than we thought, Gwen suggested. Dr. Banner says it might be adapting to your DNA over time. Ben hadn't considered that possibility. Great, so I'm becoming part alien watch. Or the watch is becoming part you, Gwen countered. Which might be why Vilgax couldn't just rip it off, he needs you, too. That thought was both reassuring and unsettling. If Vilgax needed him alive to get the Omnitrix, it provided some protection. But it also meant the warlord would never stop hunting him. Either way, Ben said, standing up straighter, he'll have to go through the Avengers to get to me. And me, Gwen added. Don't forget, I've been practicing too. Ben smiled genuinely this time. Wouldn't dream of it, dweeb. In the weeks that followed, life settled into a new routine. School, training, occasional missions against more mundane threats. The Vilgax encounter had changed something fundamental in Ben's approach to being an Avenger. He took his training more seriously, paid closer attention during strategy sessions, and even improved his grades after realizing that gray matter's intelligence could be applied to schoolwork if he actually tried. The Omnitrix itself seemed different too. More responsive, more intuitive, as if the confrontation with Vilgax had somehow strengthened Ben's connection to it. Tony and Bruce studied these changes with fascination, developing new theories about the symbiotic relationship between Ben and the device. It's almost like it's learning from you, Bruce observed during one examination. Adapting its interfaces and functions to match your preferences. And you're adapting to it, Tony added, reviewing transformation data. Your neural patterns during transformations show increasing stability. You're maintaining more of your human consciousness even in alien forms. This explained why Ben had been feeling more in control lately, less like he was becoming the aliens and more like the aliens were becoming extensions of himself. Gwen continued her magical training with Max and occasionally Doctor Strange, her abilities growing more sophisticated. She and Ben developed combination moves that paired her magic with his transformations, energy shields that 4 arms could throw like discuses, or magical targeting that enhanced heat blasts precision. Max spent increasing time at the plumber's Earth base, coordinating with extraterrestrial allies to monitor for any sign of Vilgax's return. The warlord had gone silent after his ship's destruction, but no one believed he had given up. Then, 3 months after the space battle, the first reports came in of mysterious ice formations appearing around isolated research stations in Antarctica. Temperature readings are off the charts, Bruce reported, reviewing satellite data. Colder than anything naturally possible on Earth. Crystal frost? Steve suggested. Natasha shook her head. Still in SHIELD custody, helping develop the cold-based weapons that worked against Vilgax. Then who? Clint asked. Ben studied the footage of massive, geometrically perfect ice structures rising from the Antarctic landscape. Not who, he realized. What? Look at the patterns, they're exactly like the components Frost was stealing for Vilgax. Tony enhanced the imagery. The kid's right. These aren't random formations. They're machines, cooling systems, like the ones Frost was assembling, but on a massive scale. Vilgax is back, Ben concluded grimly. And he's building something big. The Avengers deployed to Antarctica within hours, a full team including Ben, whose cold-resistant aliens would be particularly valuable in the extreme environment. They set up base camp at an international research station 20 miles from the mysterious ice structures. Satellite imagery shows 5 main formations, Steve briefed them in the station's common room. Each approximately 200 feet tall, arranged in a pentagonal pattern around a central point. Energy readings are consistent with supercooling technology, Bruce added. But magnified exponentially from what we saw before. What's Vilgax trying to freeze? Ben asked, huddled in a thermal suit designed by Tony. Even indoors, the Antarctic temperatures were brutally cold. Not freeze, Max corrected, joining them from a communication session with Plumber headquarters. Thaw. He activated a holographic display showing deep scans of the ice beneath the structures. Buried under nearly a mile of ancient ice was a massive object, distinctly technological and alien in design. A ship, Tony realized. He's excavating a ship. Not just any ship, Max said gravely. A cerebrocrustacean science vessel. Missing for over 10,000 years, presumed destroyed. What's a cerebro, whatever? Ben asked. Cerebrocrustaceans are among the most intelligent species in the galaxy, Max explained. Brilliant scientists and engineers with natural electrical manipulation abilities. Their technology was centuries ahead of most civilizations. And Vilgax is digging one of their ships out of the ice, Natasha concluded. Why? Because, came a familiar voice from the doorway, it contains technology that could amplify the Omnitrix's capabilities 1,000-fold. Everyone turned to see Dr. Crystal Frost entering, escorted by SHIELD agents. Her appearance had stabilized, skin still blue but less crystalline, her movements more natural. Dr. Frost, Fury acknowledged. Your expertise was deemed necessary for this operation. Vilgax spoke of the cerebrocrustacean vessel, she explained, approaching the hologram. He believed it contained a device called a quantum amplifier, technology that could potentially access the codon stream directly, bypassing the need for the Omnitrix itself. So he doesn't need me anymore? Ben asked, unsure whether to be relieved or concerned. He still needs the Omnitrix as a key, Frost clarified. But with this technology, he could extract what he wants without having to master the device first. Which means he's coming for Ben again, Steve concluded. But with a new strategy. Precisely, Frost nodded. And based on these energy readings, he's nearly reached the ship. Days, perhaps hours. Tony clapped his hands decisively. Then we beat him to it. We can't let him access that technology. How? Natasha asked practically. We can't exactly blow it up under a mile of Antarctic ice without causing global catastrophe. We don't need to destroy it, Ben said, an idea forming. We just need to get there first and take what Vilgax wants before he can. All eyes turned to him. The cerebrocrustaceans were geniuses, right? Ben continued. Their tech was super advanced. If we get the quantum amplifier before Vilgax, maybe we can use it to understand the Omnitrix better, maybe even figure out how to disconnect it from the codon stream so Vilgax can't access it at all. Max looked thoughtful. It's risky, but potentially viable. The plumbers had theoretical protocols for isolating Omnitrix-class devices from their source connections. It's settled then, Fury decided. We launch an expedition to reach the ship before Vilgax completes his excavation. One problem, Bruce pointed out. How do we get through a mile of ice quickly without the kind of equipment Vilgax is using? Ben grinned, activating the Omnitrix. Leave that to me. The expedition team consisted of Ben, Tony, Natasha, Dr. Frost, and 2 SHIELD scientists with expertise in alien technology. They set out at dawn, crossing the frozen landscape toward the massive ice structures Vilgax had constructed. Tony flew ahead in his armor, modified for the extreme conditions, while the others followed in specialized snow vehicles. Ben, transformed into Heat Blast, provided additional warmth for the convoy. Energy readings are increasing, Tony reported over the comms. Vilgax's excavation is accelerating. We need to hurry. As they crested a ridge, the full scale of Vilgax's operation became visible. The ice structures weren't merely cooling systems, they were massive drills, using extreme temperature differentials to crack and remove the ancient ice with terrifying efficiency. Around them, robotic drones worked tirelessly, and at the center of it all, a familiar armored figure directed the operation. Vilgax, Ben murmured, flames dimming slightly at the sight of his nemesis. He's recovered faster than expected, Natasha noted grimly. His armor appears completely rebuilt. Enhanced, not just rebuilt, Tony corrected, his scanners analyzing the warlord. He's upgraded significantly. Those aren't just repairs, they're improvements. Ben studied Vilgax from a distance, noting the changes. The warlord's armor now featured additional power nodes, more streamlined design, and what appeared to be integrated weapon systems that hadn't been present before. He learned from our last encounter, Ben realized. Fixed the vulnerabilities we exploited. So did we, Tony reminded him. Stick to the plan. We go in quiet, locate the secondary access point Dr. Frost identified, and reach the ship without engaging Vilgax directly. The team moved into position, using the rugged terrain for cover. According to Dr. Frost's analysis of the ice formations, Vilgax was drilling directly toward the ship's main compartment, but a secondary entry point existed where the ice was thinner, a maintenance airlock that the warlord had apparently overlooked. This is as far as the vehicles go, Natasha announced as they reached a narrow ice ravine. We proceed on foot. Ben switched from Heat Blast to Big Chill, a moth-like alien with ice powers and intangibility, which would allow him to move through the ice directly. I'll scout ahead, make sure the path is clear. Stay in communication range, Tony cautioned. And Ben, no heroics. Reconnaissance only. Got it, Ben nodded, spreading his wings and taking flight. As Big Chill, Ben could not only fly but phase through solid matter. He descended through the ice, his alien senses detecting variations in density and temperature that revealed the quickest path toward the buried ship. The ice became older and denser as he descended, compacted over thousands of years. Through it, he began to perceive a massive object, angular, metallic, unmistakably artificial. The cerebrocrustacean vessel. He emerged inside what appeared to be a narrow corridor, its alien architecture preserved perfectly in the ice. Despite being buried for millennia, the ship showed no signs of significant damage, a testament to the advanced materials used in its construction. I'm in, Ben reported through his communicator. The ship is intact. No signs of Vilgax breaking through yet. Can you locate the airlock? Natasha asked. Ben phased through several compartments, following the ship's layout. Working on it. This place is huge. The alien vessel was unlike any human spacecraft, designed with multiple levels connected by both conventional corridors and what appeared to be energy transfer tubes. The technology, even dormant for thousands of years, was clearly far beyond Earth's capabilities. Found it, Ben announced, reaching a small chamber with a reinforced door. Sending coordinates now. Good work, Tony replied. We're beginning our approach. Stand by. Ben remained in the airlock chamber, examining the alien controls. Despite being in big chill form, he couldn't help but wish he had gray matter's intelligence to understand the sophisticated technology. A sudden vibration shook the ship, dislodging ice from the ceiling. Guys? Something's happening, Ben reported. I think Vilgax is breaking through. We're still 10 minutes out, Tony replied urgently. Can you delay him? Ben considered his options. Direct confrontation would be risky, especially alone, but he couldn't let Vilgax reach the quantum amplifier first. I'll try, he decided. Where would this amplifier thing be kept? Main research laboratory, Dr. Frost's voice came through. Central section, upper level. On it. Ben phased through the ship, racing toward the coordinates. The vibrations grew stronger, Vilgax was definitely breaking through, and faster than expected. The research laboratory was a vast chamber filled with equipment that even after 10,000 years looked futuristic. Ben reverted to human form briefly to examine the technology with human eyes, looking for anything matching Dr. Frost's description of the quantum amplifier. Come on, he muttered, scanning the alien devices. Which one of you is the super important thing Vilgax wants? A massive crash echoed through the ship. Vilgax had broken through. Ben quickly transformed into Ghost Freak, his intangible, phantom-like form perfect for stealth. He hovered near the ceiling as heavy footsteps approached the laboratory. Vilgax entered, accompanied by 2 drone guards. His new armor gleamed in the emergency lights that had somehow activated upon the breach. At last, the warlord rumbled, surveying the laboratory. After all these centuries. He moved purposefully toward a cylindrical device at the center of the room, a metallic column with pulsing circuit patterns and a crystalline core. The quantum amplifier. Ben watched as Vilgax began disconnecting the device from its housing. He needed to act, but direct confrontation would be suicide. Instead, he concentrated, using Ghost Freak's powers of possession to enter one of the drone guards. Taking control of the machine, Ben made it raise its weapon toward the other drone and fire. The surprise attack destroyed the second drone instantly, causing Vilgax to whirl around in shock. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. Ben made the possessed drone fire at Vilgax next, though the shots bounced harmlessly off his enhanced armor. Malfunction, Vilgax muttered, striding toward the drone. With a single powerful blow, he shattered it, forcing Ben to abandon the possession and resume his Ghost Freak form, still invisible to Vilgax. The warlord returned to the quantum amplifier, more cautious now. Curious, he said to himself. The ship's systems should be dormant after all this time. Ben needed a new strategy. Looking around the laboratory, he spotted what appeared to be a control console. Maintaining his invisibility, he floated over and experimentally passed a spectral hand through it. To his surprise, the console activated, lights flickering across its surface. Ben hadn't expected this. Ghost Freak's energy was somehow interfacing with the ancient technology. An idea formed. If he could activate more systems, perhaps create enough of a distraction. Ben concentrated, channeling Ghost Freak's energy into the console. Displays illuminated, and a low hum built throughout the laboratory as dormant systems began powering up. Vilgax paused in his work, looking around warily. Impossible, he growled. More systems activated across the lab, lights, displays, even what appeared to be defensive turrets emerging from ceiling panels. Ben continued pouring energy into the console, hoping to trigger anything that might impede Vilgax. The warlord abandoned the quantum amplifier momentarily, moving to investigate the mysterious activations. "Show yourself," he commanded. "I know you're here, Tennyson." Ben remained silent, focused on the systems. Something was happening now, the ship was responding, protocols engaging after millennia of dormancy. A holographic display appeared at the center of the room, showing what appeared to be a diagnostic sequence. Vilgax studied it, his expression shifting from anger to calculation. "Clever," he admitted. "Using the ship's automated systems against me. But futile." He raised his gauntlet, emitting a pulse of energy that disrupted Ben's connection to the console. The systems flickered but remained active, running their automated sequences. "I developed countermeasures for all your alien forms after our last encounter," Vilgax explained, scanning the room methodically. "Including your spectral ectoneurite form." A second pulse hit Ben directly, forcing him to materialize. Ghost Freak's form became visible, hovering near the console. "There you are," Vilgax smiled coldly. "Alone, I see. Disobeying orders again, young hero?" "Just keeping you company until the real party arrives," Ben retorted, backing away. "Your Avengers cannot help you here," Vilgax advanced steadily. "By the time they reach us, I will have the amplifier and your Omnitrix." Ben needed to stall longer. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest was still green, he could transform again if needed. But which form would be most effective against Vilgax's upgraded armor? The decision was made for him when the ship suddenly lurched violently, throwing both him and Vilgax off balance. Ice cracked and shifted around them as the vessel moved. "What have you done?" Vilgax demanded, steadying himself. "That wasn't me," Ben replied honestly, equally confused. A computerized voice echoed through the laboratory, speaking an alien language neither understood. Displays showed the ice surrounding the ship beginning to melt at an accelerated rate. "The automated recovery protocol," Vilgax realized, his expression darkening. "You've activated the ship's emergency systems. Is that bad?" Ben asked, transforming back to human form as the Omnitrix timed out. "The ship believes it is in danger," Vilgax explained with surprising patience. "It is attempting to free itself from the ice to return to its home world, a world that no longer exists. So we should probably get out of here," Ben suggested. "Not without the amplifier." Vilgax turned back to the device, working more urgently now. The ship shuddered again, more violently. Ben lost his footing, sliding across the tilting floor until he crashed into a control panel. Buttons and switches activated under his weight, triggering new systems. A containment field suddenly sprang to life around the quantum amplifier, sealing it in a transparent energy bubble. Vilgax slammed his fist against it in frustration, but the field held. "Release the containment protocol," he ordered Ben. "Even if I wanted to help you, which I definitely don't, I have no idea how to control this ship," Ben replied, getting to his feet carefully as the floor continued to shift. A new voice came over Ben's communicator. "Ben. We've reached the airlock, but the ship is becoming unstable." "What's happening in there?" "Tony. The ship is trying to fly home or something," Ben reported. "Vilgax is here, trying to get the amplifier thing, but it's in some kind of force field now." "We're coming to you," Natasha responded. "Hold position." "I don't think that's an option," Ben replied as the laboratory door sealed suddenly, emergency protocols engaging throughout the vessel. Vilgax turned to Ben, calculation in his red eyes. "It seems we face a common problem, Tennyson. This ship is initiating its emergency launch sequence. If it breaks free of the ice with us aboard, we will both be trapped as it attempts its journey. So we both need to get out," Ben acknowledged. "Truce until we're clear." Vilgax laughed harshly. "You continue to surprise me with your naivety. I have no intention of leaving without the amplifier." "And I have no intention of letting you take it," Ben countered, activating the Omnitrix again. He transformed into Diamond Head, his crystalline form bracing against the increasingly violent movements of the ship. So be it, Vilgax sighed, almost regretfully. We do this the hard way. The battle that followed was unlike any Ben had experienced before. Fighting inside a shifting, awakening alien vessel while surrounded by technology beyond human understanding created unpredictable conditions. Diamond Head's crystalline projectiles bounced off walls, computer systems exploded from stray energy blasts, and the tilting floor made maintaining balance nearly impossible. Vilgax fought with the precision of a warrior who had battled across galaxies. His upgraded armor compensated for the unstable environment, thrusters keeping him stable while Ben struggled to maintain his footing. Your determination is admirable, Vilgax commented, blocking a crystal shard with his gauntlet. But ultimately pointless. I have conquered worlds, defeated armies. What hope does a child have? This child kicked your butt last time, Ben retorted, creating a crystal shield to deflect Vilgax's energy blast. A momentary setback, Vilgax dismissed. One I have thoroughly addressed. He demonstrated this by activating a new function in his armor. Energy coalesced around his fists, forming what appeared to be plasma blades that sliced through Ben's crystal projections like butter. Okay, that's new, Ben muttered, dodging backward. The ship lurched again, more violently than before. Warning lights flashed throughout the laboratory as the vessel's systems continued their reactivation sequence. Through the walls, Ben could hear ice cracking as the ancient engines generated heat. Ben. Tony's voice came through his communicator. We're at the lab door, but it's sealed. We're working on bypassing. Hurry. Ben called back, narrowly avoiding Vilgax's plasma blade. Things are getting dicey in here. Diamond Head's form wasn't working well against Vilgax's new weapons. Ben needed something with more maneuverability in the chaotic environment. He hit the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming into Spider Monkey, an agile, four-armed simian alien. Monkey see, monkey do, monkey's gonna beat up you. Ben quipped, leaping to the ceiling and using his enhanced agility to stay out of Vilgax's reach. Childish rhymes will not save you, Vilgax growled, adjusting his tactics to track Ben's faster movements. From his higher vantage point, Ben could see that the containment field around the quantum amplifier was fluctuating. The ship's erratic power surges were affecting its stability. The field's failing, he realized aloud. If it goes down. I claim my prize, Vilgax finished, noticing the same thing. And with it, the power to access the codon stream directly. Ben needed to keep the amplifier away from Vilgax, but also needed to escape the ship before it potentially launched. An impossible choice, unless. New plan, he muttered, hitting the Omnitrix symbol again. He transformed into upgrade once more, dropping directly onto the containment field generator. Merging with the alien technology was challenging, far more complex than Earth tech, but his time merged with Vilgax's armor had given him experience with advanced systems. What are you doing? Vilgax demanded, seeing Ben's strategy. Improvising. Ben replied, channeling his upgrade abilities into the containment system. Rather than trying to maintain the failing field, he redirected its energy to create a new function, a teleportation buffer similar to what the ship used for matter transport. The quantum amplifier began to shimmer as Ben's modifications took effect. Vilgax lunged forward, trying to reach it before Ben completed whatever he was attempting. No, the warlord roared as the device dematerialized just as his fingers would have closed around it. Too slow, Ben taunted, separating from the console. Where did you send it? Vilgax demanded, grabbing Ben's liquid metal form and attempting to crush it. Somewhere you can't get it, Ben replied, though in truth, he wasn't entirely sure. He'd attempted to send it to the Avengers' position at the airlock, but his understanding of the alien teleportation system was limited. For all he knew, he'd sent it into space or converted it to energy permanently. The laboratory door suddenly exploded inward as Iron Man's repulsor blast finally breached the seal. Tony, Natasha, and Dr. Frost rushed in, weapons ready. Ben! Tony called out, assessing the situation instantly. Time to go. Vilgax turned to face the new arrivals, his expression furious but controlled. The Avengers, right on schedule. Stand down, Vilgax, Natasha ordered, though the command seemed almost comical given the warlord's imposing presence. I think not, Vilgax replied calmly. But neither will I continue this encounter. He activated a device on his gauntlet. We will meet again, Tennyson. Count on it. A teleportation field enveloped him, and he vanished, not before giving Ben one last meaningful look that promised future confrontation. What happened to the amplifier? Dr. Frost asked urgently as the ship shuddered around them. Ben, returning to human form, shook his head. I teleported it, somewhere. I was trying to send it to you guys. Nothing arrived at our position, Tony reported, scanning the room. But I'm picking up an energy signature matching its description, outside the ship, about half a mile down. I miscalculated, Ben realized. But at least Vilgax didn't get it. We'll find it later, Natasha decided as the ship groaned ominously. Right now, we need to evacuate. They rushed through the tilting corridors, the ancient vessel now fully awake and attempting to break free from its icy prison. Systems activated and deactivated randomly around them, doors opening and closing, gravity fluctuating. This whole thing's going to tear itself apart, Tony observed as they navigated the chaos. 10,000 years of dormancy followed by an emergency reactivation, the power systems can't handle it. They reached the airlock just as the ship gave its most violent lurch yet. Through the ice walls, they could see massive cracks spreading outward as the vessel's engines generated increasing heat. Everyone in the escape vehicle. Tony ordered, ushering them through the airlock into the passage they'd cut through the ice. They barely made it to a safe distance before the impossible happened. With a deafening roar and a plume of steam and ice fragments, the ancient cerebrocrustacean ship began to rise from its frozen tomb. From the relative safety of their position on a nearby ridge, they watched in awe as the massive vessel, nearly a quarter-mile long, breached the surface like a metallic leviathan rising from the depths. That is both awesome and terrifying, Ben breathed, watching the ship hover unsteadily above the massive crater its emergence had created. The vessel's systems were clearly failing, its hull cracking in places, energy discharges flickering across its surface. It rose higher, attempting to achieve escape velocity despite its deteriorating condition. It's not going to make it, Dr. Frost noted clinically. Structural integrity is failing. She was right. As the ship reached approximately 5 miles altitude, catastrophic failure cascaded through its systems. The vessel broke apart in a spectacular series of explosions, raining debris across the Antarctic landscape. So much for advanced alien technology, Natasha remarked. 10,000 years of ice will do that to you, Tony replied. Even cerebrocrustacean engineering has its limits. Ben stared at the falling debris, feeling strangely melancholic. All that knowledge, that technology, just gone. Not quite all, Dr. Frost corrected, checking a scanner. The quantum amplifier's signature is still registering. Your teleportation saved it from the ship's destruction. Great, Ben brightened. So we got what we came for, and Vilgax didn't. Mission accomplished. Tony clapped him on the shoulder. Not bad, kid. Though next time, maybe wait for backup before engaging an intergalactic warlord alone. Where's the fun in that? Ben grinned, though inwardly he acknowledged the recklessness of his actions. He'd gotten lucky, and he knew it. The quantum amplifier, once recovered from the ice, was transported to a secure shield facility for study. Initial analysis confirmed Dr. Frost's information. The device could indeed interface with the Omnitrix in ways that might allow access to the codon stream. The question is, Bruce mused during a briefing back at Avengers Tower, do we attempt to use it as Ben suggested? Try to disconnect the Omnitrix from the codon stream to protect it from Vilgax? The risks are substantial, Max cautioned. The Omnitrix was designed with that connection as an integral feature. Severing it could have unpredictable effects on both the device and on Ben. But leaving it connected means Vilgax will keep coming, Steve pointed out. And next time, he'll be even more prepared. Ben, who had been quietly listening to the adults' debate, finally spoke up. What if we don't disconnect it? What if we use the amplifier to understand the connection better? Maybe find a way to secure it instead of severing it. All eyes turned to him. The codon stream isn't just some database, Ben continued, warming to his idea. It's part of what makes the Omnitrix work. But maybe we can use the amplifier to add security protocols, like a password or something. Tony snapped his fingers. The kid's got a point. Why break what works when we can hack it and improve it? It would require extensive testing, Bruce cautioned. We'd need to fully understand the amplifier first. And considering what happened the last time we tried to interface with the Omnitrix, we need to be exceptionally careful, Natasha added, referencing the BOB device incident. Fury nodded slowly. We proceed with caution. Banner, Stark, you work with Dr. Frost on understanding the amplifier. No direct connection to the Omnitrix until we're absolutely certain of the effects. Ben accepted this decision with surprising maturity. The Antarctic mission had shown him that rushing in wasn't always the best approach, even if his quick thinking had ultimately kept the amplifier from Vilgax's grasp. As the meeting concluded, Gwen approached him in the hallway outside. Heard you had quite an adventure, she said. Fighting Vilgax alone inside an ancient alien spaceship. That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Why not both? Ben shrugged with a half-smile. Gwen studied him for a moment. You're different, she finally said. More. I don't know, thoughtful. Nearly getting killed by an alien warlord a few times will do that to you, Ben replied. Plus, you know, the whole, responsible for an all-powerful alien database, thing. Well, it's an improvement, Gwen declared. Though don't let it go to your head. Ben laughed. No chance of that with you around to keep me humble. They walked in companionable silence for a moment. So what now? Gwen finally asked. Now, Ben said, looking at the Omnitrix, we get smarter about this. Vilgax isn't giving up, and next time, he'll have new tricks. So we need new tricks too. We. The Avengers, Ben clarified. And yes, you too, if you want. Your magic actually might help us understand this quantum amplifier thing. Doctor Strange mentioned something about magical and technological interfaces. Gwen seemed pleased by the invitation. I'll see what I can find out. As they parted ways, Ben found himself reflecting on how much had changed in the 6 months since he'd joined the Avengers. He'd gone from an overexcited kid showing off his cool alien transformations to someone who thought strategically, who understood the responsibilities that came with the Omnitrix. He wasn't just using the watch anymore, he was worthy of it. And when Vilgax returned, as Ben knew he would, the warlord wouldn't be facing a child with a powerful toy. He'd be facing an Avenger. 3 weeks later, Ben stood in the specialized laboratory where Tony, Bruce, and Dr. Frost had been studying the quantum amplifier. The device sat at the center of a containment field, connected to various monitoring systems but carefully isolated from the Omnitrix itself. You're sure about this? Steve asked, concern evident in his voice. Ben nodded firmly. We've run all the simulations. The isolated tests worked perfectly. It's time to try the real thing. The real thing was a carefully calibrated interaction between the amplifier and the Omnitrix, not to disconnect it from the codon stream as originally discussed, but to establish what Tony had termed a secure handshake protocol. The analogy is like adding two-factor authentication to your email, Tony had explained. The Omnitrix still connects to the codon stream, but now it requires Ben's specific genetic signature as a key. Theoretically, Bruce added, this would prevent Vilgax from accessing the codon stream even if he somehow obtained the Omnitrix. The procedure required Ben to transform into gray matter, whose Galvan DNA would facilitate the intricate adjustments needed, while the amplifier stabilized the connection to prevent any unintended effects. All monitoring systems online, Dr. Frost reported, her blue fingers moving confidently across the controls. Containment field stable. Biometric scanners active, Bruce added. We'll be monitoring your vital signs throughout the procedure, Ben. Ready when you are, kid, Tony said, giving him a thumbs up. Ben took a deep breath, stepping into the designated area. The quantum amplifier hummed softly, its crystalline core pulsing with alien energy. Here goes nothing, he said, activating the Omnitrix and transforming into gray matter. In this form, Ben's intelligence increased exponentially. Complex calculations and abstractions that would have been incomprehensible to his human mind became instantly clear. He could see the elegant design of the quantum amplifier, understand its function at a fundamental level. Fascinating, he commented, his gray matter voice high-pitched and rapid. The amplifier doesn't just boost signals, it creates quantum entanglement between independent systems, allowing simultaneous access across theoretically infinite distances. Focus, Ben, Natasha reminded him gently. The task at hand. Right, Ben nodded, approaching the amplifier. Initiating interface sequence now. He placed his small galvan hands on the designated contact points. Immediately, a stream of data flooded his enhanced mind, information about the Omnitrix, about the codon stream, about connections and protocols he'd never known existed. It's working, he reported excitedly. I can see the connection pathways. The codon stream isn't just a database, it's a living system, constantly updating as species evolve across the galaxy. Vital signs stable, Bruce noted. Brain activity elevated but within expected parameters. Ben worked methodically, using gray matter's intelligence and the amplifier's capabilities to implement the security protocols they designed. It was delicate work, one mistake could damage the Omnitrix permanently or sever the connection entirely. Almost there, he murmured, making final adjustments. The biometric lock is integrating with the existing security layers. Fascinating redundancy in the original design, almost as if Azimuth anticipated this kind of modification. As he completed the final sequence, the Omnitrix symbol on his back pulsed with bright green energy. The quantum amplifier responded with its own surge, creating a momentary feedback loop between the two technologies. Energy spike. Dr. Frost called out in alarm. Containment field fluctuating. Ben, disengage now. Tony ordered. Gray matter's small form was enveloped in green light as the energy pulse spread through the connection. Ben felt a strange sensation, not painful, but intensely disorienting, as if his consciousness was simultaneously present in multiple places across vast distances. For a brief moment, he glimpsed something extraordinary, a massive green sphere of energy, pulsing with what he somehow knew was the genetic information of countless species. The codon stream itself, the heart of the Omnitrix's power. Then the connection broke, and Ben found himself human again, lying on the laboratory floor with concerned faces peering down at him. Ben! Can you hear me? Steve was saying, a hand on his shoulder. I saw it, Ben murmured, sitting up slowly. The codon stream. It was beautiful. Did the protocol work? Bruce asked, running a scanner over the Omnitrix. Tony checked the readings from multiple instruments. According to these, yes. The Omnitrix is still connected to the codon stream, but now the connection requires Ben's specific genetic signature to activate. In theory, Dr. Frost added cautiously, this means Vilgax could possess the physical device, but without Ben, it would be unable to access the codon stream's data. Which makes Ben both more valuable and more protected, Natasha concluded. Vilgax needs him alive and cooperative to get what he wants. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, which seemed outwardly unchanged. Yet he could sense a difference, a deeper connection, a sense that the device was now truly his in a way it hadn't been before. There's something else, he said, remembering the brief vision. When I saw the codon stream, I noticed empty spaces, like placeholders for DNA that isn't there yet. What do you mean? Max asked with interest. The Omnitrix isn't just storing existing alien DNA, Ben tried to explain. It's expecting more. Like it's designed to keep growing, adding new species as they're discovered. A living library, Bruce mused. Constantly updating itself. Which explains why Azimuth created it in the first place, Max nodded thoughtfully. Not as a weapon, but as a preservation system, a way to ensure no sentient species is ever truly lost. The implications were profound. The Omnitrix wasn't merely a transformation device or even a database, it was a conservation project on a galactic scale, perhaps the most important scientific instrument ever created. And it had chosen Ben. So what now? He asked, looking around at the assembled Avengers. Vilgax is still out there. He'll figure out what we've done eventually. Now, Fury said from the doorway, where he'd been silently observing, you continue your training. Continue learning. Continue growing into the hero that device believed you could be when it found you. Ben nodded, a new sense of purpose filling him. The Omnitrix wasn't just a cool watch that let him turn into aliens. It wasn't just a powerful weapon that needed to be protected from villains like Vilgax. It was a responsibility, to preserve, to protect, to use its powers wisely. I won't let you down, he said simply. Steve smiled. You never have. As the team dispersed, Ben remained in the laboratory for a moment, looking at the quantum amplifier that had given them this new understanding. Dr. Frost approached, her expression thoughtful. You know, she said quietly, when I first met you, I thought Vilgax was a fool for fearing a child. Now I understand why he hunts you so relentlessly. Because of the Omnitrix? Ben asked. Because of what you represent together, she corrected. Power is common in the universe, Ben Tennyson. Power with purpose, with compassion, with restraint, that is rare. And far more dangerous to creatures like Vilgax. Ben considered her words as she walked away. 6 months ago, he would have puffed up with pride at such a compliment. Now, he simply accepted it as another responsibility. The Omnitrix beeped softly on his wrist, as if in agreement. Whatever came next, Vilgax, new threats, new challenges, Ben would face it not just with the power of 10 aliens, but with the wisdom he'd gained from his time with the Avengers. He was Ben Tennyson. Wielder of the Omnitrix. Protector of the codon stream. Avenger. Chapter 3, When Worlds Collide 1 Year. That's how long Ben Tennyson had been an Avenger. 12 months since a weird alien watch crashed next to his campsite and changed everything. 365 days of training, fighting, learning, and growing alongside Earth's mightiest heroes. And right now, all that experience was telling him one thing, he was totally, completely screwed. Any ideas would be great. Ben shouted, dodging another energy blast from the hovering robot. Its red eyes tracked him across the abandoned warehouse, calculating his movements with terrifying precision. Still working on it. Tony's voice crackled through his earpiece. That thing's using some kind of adaptive shielding. Every time I crack one frequency, it shifts to another. Ben ducked behind a concrete pillar, breathing hard. The warehouse was supposed to be a simple recon mission, check out weird energy readings, report back. Nobody mentioned killer robots with shields that could adapt to his alien forms. Cap. Widow. Anybody? Ben called, wincing as another blast obliterated the top of his cover. 2 minutes out, Steve replied. Hold position. Not really an option. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through his available transformations. He'd tried Diamond Head, but the robot had shifted its weapons to a frequency that cracked his crystalline form. Heat blast's flames couldn't penetrate its thermal shielding. XLR-8 was fast, but the robot somehow predicted his movements. Time for something unpredictable. Going ghost. Ben slammed down on the Omnitrix, transforming into Ghost Freak. His spectral form phased through the pillar just as the robot blasted it to rubble. Let's see you hit what you can't touch, Ben taunted, floating toward the ceiling. The robot paused, scanners sweeping the room. For a moment, Ben thought he had it stumped. Then its eyes flashed, and it released an energy pulse that somehow connected with his intangible form, sending painful shocks through his spectral body. Ow! How did you? Ectoneurite vulnerability detected, the robot announced in a chillingly familiar voice. Adapting countermeasures. Ben froze. That voice. It couldn't be. Tony, he said urgently. This robot, it sounds like Ultron, Tony finished grimly. That's impossible. We destroyed every trace of him. Evidently not, the robot replied, its voice echoing through Ben's calm. Though I am merely an echo of what I was. Or perhaps, what I will become. Ben didn't wait for more monologuing. He transformed into swampfire, hurling seeds that exploded into tangling vines around the robot's limbs. It tore through them easily, but the distraction gave Ben enough time to ignite a wall of flames between them. The Omnitrix, the robot stated, advancing through the fire unharmed. Such potential. Such power. Wasted on a child. I'm almost 13. Ben objected, backing toward the exit. Practically a teenager. Your age is irrelevant. Your limitations are intrinsic. The robot's chest plate opened, revealing a pulsing energy core. Your greatest weakness is your humanity. A massive energy beam erupted from the core, too wide to dodge. Ben crossed his plant-like arms in front of him, bracing for impact. The blast hit with incredible force, sending him crashing through the warehouse wall and into the parking lot beyond. Ben struggled to his feet, Swampfire's regenerative abilities already repairing the damage. But the robot was relentless, hovering through the hole, weapons charged for another attack. Incoming! Iron Man's voice shouted through the comms, followed by the distinctive whine of repulsors at full power. Tony slammed into the robot from above, the impact driving it into the concrete. He followed with a barrage of missiles from his shoulder mounts, creating a spectacular explosion that briefly obscured both figures. Got him? Ben asked hopefully. The smoke cleared to reveal the robot gripping Iron Man by the throat, its frame barely damaged. Your arrogance remains consistent, Stark, it said, tightening its grip. You believe every problem can be solved with sufficient application of force. Not every problem, Tony replied, his voice strained but confident. Just the ones wearing your ugly face. A red, white, and blue shield whirled through the air, striking the robot's arm with enough force to break its hold on Tony. Steve Rogers caught the shield on its return, already moving in for another attack. About time. Ben called, relieved to see the cavalry arriving. Natasha and Clint flanked Steve, weapons ready. Traffic, Clint deadpanned, knocking a specialized arrow. Plus someone forgot to mention the part about Ultron being back. Not Ultron, the robot corrected, assessing the new threats. Merely a prototype. A test. A test of what? Steve demanded, shield raised defensively. The robot seemed to consider the question, its red eyes flickering. Compatibility. Without warning, it shot straight up into the sky, moving so fast it broke the sound barrier. Tony immediately gave chase, his armor struggling to match the acceleration. It's heading for the upper atmosphere, Tony reported. I can't, wait, it's changing course. Coming back down, fast. Evasive maneuvers. Steve ordered. But instead of attacking, the robot halted its descent 500 feet up. Its chest plate opened again, revealing the pulsing core. The test is concluded, it announced, loud enough for all to hear. Results, promising. Then it self-destructed in a spectacular explosion that briefly outshone the sun. Well, Ben said as debris rained down around them, that was weird. Back at Avengers Tower, the mood was tense. The team gathered in the conference room, examining fragments of the robot recovered from the explosion. Definitely Ultron-adjacent technology, Tony muttered, manipulating holographic schematics. But modified. Hybridized with something I don't recognize. I do, Max Tennyson said, entering the room with fury. He picked up a twisted piece of circuitry. This is galvanic mechamorph technology. Same species as Ben's upgrade form. Alien tech merged with Ultron's design. Bruce looked concerned. That's problematic. That's one word for it, Fury agreed. Another might be catastrophic. Especially given who's likely behind it. Ben didn't need to ask who Fury meant. Vilgax is back. Never really left, Max corrected. Just regrouped. Plumber Intelligence has tracked his movements since the Antarctica incident. He's been gathering resources, technology, allies. And now he's experimenting with Ultron tech, Steve frowned. Why? The Omnitrix, Gwen answered, looking up from her tablet. She'd been analyzing the data they'd collected, her fingers occasionally glowing with pink magical energy as she interfaced with the systems in ways technology alone couldn't. The robot specifically mentioned compatibility. I think Vilgax is looking for ways to interface with the Omnitrix despite our security upgrades. Makes sense, Tony nodded. Ultron was designed to interface with complex systems. If Vilgax got hold of his code, he could potentially create a workaround for the biometric lock we implemented, Bruce finished. Use Ultron's adaptability to overcome the Omnitrix's defenses. Ben looked down at the watch on his wrist. After a year, it felt like part of him, not just physically, but fundamentally. The thought of Vilgax finding a way to take control of it was deeply unsettling. So what's the plan? He asked, trying to sound more confident than he felt. We find Vilgax before he perfects his weird Ultron-alien hybrid thing. Not that simple, Fury replied. We don't know where Vilgax is operating from. But we do have leads on who might be helping him on Earth. He brought up an image of a gaunt man with wild white hair and peculiar red goggles. Dr. Aloysius James Animo. Former geneticist, current nutjob with a talent for mutating animals into monsters. Recently broken out of prison by persons unknown. What's his connection to Vilgax? Natasha asked. Dar. Animo has been obsessed with genetic manipulation for decades, Max explained. His research, while ethically abhorrent, was groundbreaking. If Vilgax needs someone to help understand and manipulate DNA, like the samples in the codon stream, Animo would be a logical choice. And we think we know where he's holed up, Fury added, displaying a map with a blinking red dot in the southwestern desert. Satellite imagery picked up unusual energy signatures consistent with both alien tech and genetic experimentation. So we go in, grab Animo, shut down whatever he's working on, Clint summarized. Sounds straightforward enough. Which means it won't be, Natasha remarked dryly. Full team operation, Steve decided. We don't know what we're walking into, but if Vilgax and Ultron tech are involved, we need all hands on deck. All hands except mine, right? Gwen asked pointedly. An awkward silence fell over the room. Despite her increasing involvement with the team and her growing magical abilities, Gwen was still considered too young for field operations. Even Ben, despite being the same age, had special dispensation due to the Omnitrix. We need you coordinating from here, Fury said diplomatically. Your magical interfaces give us capabilities we can't replicate. Gwen clearly wasn't happy with the answer but nodded reluctantly. Fine. But if things go sideways, I'm coming after you. Ben caught her eye and gave a small nod of respect. He might tease his cousin mercilessly, but he'd come to appreciate her abilities and determination over the past year. Wheels up in 30, Steve announced. Suit up. The facility was hidden well, built into the side of a mesa in the New Mexico desert, its entrance concealed by holographic technology. Without S.H.I.E.L.D.'s advanced detection systems, they might have flown right past it. Thermal scans show approximately 20 human signatures inside, Tony reported as the Quinjet circled at a safe distance. Plus several, larger heat sources that don't match any known profile. Animo's pets, Ben guessed. He likes making things big and nasty. Approach strategy? Natasha asked, checking her weapons. Steve considered for a moment. 2 teams. Stark, Thor, and I will take point through the main entrance, draw their attention. Romanoff, Barton, and Ben infiltrate through the secondary access Stark identified, find Animo and his research. What about me? Bruce asked quietly. Stand by unless code green becomes necessary, Steve replied. We don't know what kind of genetic experiments are happening in there. The Hulk's involvement could complicate things. Bruce nodded, looking relieved. He'd been working on controlling the Hulk, but laboratories filled with mutated creatures presented too many variables. Let's move, Steve ordered. And Ben, I know, Ben interrupted with a grin. Follow orders, stay with the team, don't go hero on my own. I've heard the speech a few times. Steve smiled slightly. Actually, I was going to say choose your form strategically. We're counting on your abilities in there. Ben blinked in surprise. That was new, being treated as an asset rather than a liability that needed supervision. A year's worth of training and missions had apparently earned him more trust than he'd realized. Right, he nodded seriously. Got it. The teams deployed, with Tony, Thor, and Steve creating a spectacular diversion at the main entrance, repulsors, lightning, and vibranium shield announcing their presence with subtle as a fireworks show. Meanwhile, Ben, Natasha, and Clint approached a maintenance hatch Tony had identified on the facility's roof. Ben transformed into Upgrade, merging with the security panel to bypass its protections while Natasha and Clint watched their backs. We're in, Natasha reported as the hatch opened silently. Proceeding to objective. They descended into the facility, moving through darkened maintenance tunnels. The sounds of battle echoed from the main entrance, roars, explosions, and Thor's booming laughter suggesting the diversion was working as planned. Life signs ahead, Clint whispered, checking a scanner. 2 humans, plus something, bigger. They approached a junction where the tunnel opened into a larger laboratory space. Through the grating, they could see scientific equipment, glowing containment units, and a familiar wild-haired figure hunched over a control panel. Target acquired, Natasha murmured. Ben, can you see what he's working on? Ben, still in Upgrade form, extended a portion of himself through the grating like a liquid metal periscope. His enhanced visual processing analyzed the lab. Looks like genetic sequencing equipment, he reported. Those tanks contain, whoa. What? Clint asked. They look like half-formed aliens, Ben explained, disturbed. Like someone tried to recreate my transformations but didn't get it quite right. Animo's attempting to duplicate the Omnitrix's capabilities, Natasha realized. Create his own transforming creatures. Unsuccessfully, judging by those tanks, Ben noted. But that big thing in the corner looks pretty complete. The big thing was a massive, reptilian creature with 4 arms and a thick armored hide, seemingly a hybrid of multiple alien species. That's our cue, Natasha decided. Barton, take the high position. I'll secure Animo. Ben, be ready to contain that creature if it awakens. They burst into action. Clint kicked out the grating and rolled into position, bow drawn. Natasha dropped silently to the floor, moving toward Animo. Ben flowed through as Upgrade, preparing to transform into something combat-ready if needed. Animo looked up, startled but not particularly concerned. Ah, visitors. You're earlier than expected. Dr. Aloysius Animo, Natasha stated, weapons trained on him. You're under arrest for prison escape, illegal genetic experimentation, and collaboration with an extraterrestrial hostile. Such limited vision, Animo sighed dramatically. I'm not collaborating with hostiles, I'm advancing human science by decades. Centuries. By creating genetic abominations? Ben asked, reverting to human form. Animo's eyes widened behind his goggles. The Omnitrix bearer. Perfect timing. My benefactor will be so pleased. Your benefactor? Clint asked, arrow still knocked. You mean Vilgax? Animo smiled unervingly. I work with many visionaries who appreciate my genius. Speaking of which, would you like to see my latest masterpiece? He pressed a button on his wrist controller before anyone could stop him. The tank containing the massive creature began to drain, its occupants stirring. Meet Exoskull 2.0, Animo announced proudly as the creature's eyes snapped open. Improved with DNA from Tetramand, Pyronite, and Vaxasaurian species. Quite the improvement over my previous models, don't you think? The creature roared, shattering its tank and sending glass and fluid spraying across the laboratory. It towered over them, easily 12 feet tall, its 4 massive arms ending in wicked claws. So much for the stealth approach, Clint muttered, firing an explosive arrow that detonated against the creature's hide with little effect. Ben, containment. Natasha ordered, already moving to flank the beast. Ben didn't hesitate, transforming into 4 arms. His red, 4-armed form was smaller than Exoskull but more agile. Hey, ugly! Ben called, drawing the creature's attention. Nice knockoff you've got there, Animo. Too bad it's missing the Tennyson touch. Exoskull roared in response, charging forward with surprising speed. Ben braced himself and caught the creature's charge, his 4 arms straining against its superior size and strength. Little help here, he called as Exoskull pushed him backward, claws digging into his shoulders. Natasha fired her widow's bites at the creature's exposed neck, causing it to flinch but not release Ben. Clint's arrows targeted the joints in its armor, seeking vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, Animo was attempting to escape through a side door. Success requires sacrifice, he cackled. Consider this a field test. Oh no you don't. Ben grunted, managing to flip Exoskull over his head with a massive effort. The creature crashed into a row of equipment, momentarily stunned. Ben slapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming into XLR-8. In a blur of speed, he intercepted Animo at the door, skidding to a halt in front of the startled scientist. Going somewhere? He asked, tail whipping back and forth. Fascinating, Animo murmured, apparently more interested in observing the transformation than concerned about his escape being thwarted. The molecular restructuring is instantaneous, yet stable. My method requires weeks of genetic conditioning. Yeah, well, that's the difference between a knockoff and the real thing, Ben replied, grabbing Animo's controller and crushing it. Your pet project is officially discontinued. A thunderous roar reminded him that Exoskull was far from neutralized. The creature had recovered and was now exhibiting a new ability, the armor plates on its back glowing red-hot before it spewed a gout of flame toward Natasha and Clint. Look out! Ben shouted, racing over in XLR-8 form and evacuating both Avengers before the flames reached them. It's using Heat Blast's powers. We need to cool it down, Natasha assessed quickly. Can you transform into your ice form? Big chill. On it. Ben slapped the Omnitrix symbol again, transforming into the moth-like alien with ice powers. Time for the deep freeze. He exhaled a blast of super-cold air at Exoskull, dousing its flames and beginning to encase it in ice. The creature fought against the spreading frost, its multiple arms flailing as its movements slowed. It's working. Clint called, firing ice-tipped arrows to reinforce Ben's efforts. Then Exoskull revealed another ability. Its frozen body suddenly glowed from within, heat rapidly melting the ice as it transformed its tissue structure. The creature that emerged was smaller but denser, its hide now crystalline like Ben's diamond head form. Oh, come on. Ben complained. That's just cheating. The crystalline Exoskull fired shards from its arms, forcing everyone to take cover. Ben switched tactics, transforming into heat blast and attempting to melt the creature's new form. This isn't working, Natasha observed. It just adapts to whatever we throw at it. Like the robot, Ben realized. It's using the same adaptive technology. A massive explosion rocked the facility. Steve's voice came through their comms. We've secured the main area, but reinforcements just arrived. Mechanical drones with the same Ultron signatures as before. How many? Natasha asked. At least 20, Tony replied, the sound of repulsor fire in the background. And they're learning as we fight them. The situation was escalating rapidly. Ben needed a new approach against Exoskull, something the creature couldn't adapt to. I've got an idea, he said, dodging another barrage of crystal shards. But it's going to get messy. Do it, Natasha ordered, providing covering fire as Exoskull advanced on their position. Ben hit the Omnitrix again, transforming into Ghost Freak. His spectral form phased through the floor, disappearing from sight. Where did he go? Clint asked, loosing another arrow that shattered harmlessly against Exoskull's crystalline hide. Natasha smiled slightly. Watch. Ghost Freak phased up through the floor directly beneath Exoskull, but instead of attacking, he did something unexpected. He possessed the creature, entering its body and taking control from within. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Exoskull froze in place, its body twitching as Ben fought for control. Strange sounds emerged from its throat as two consciousnesses battled for dominance. Get out of my creation. Animo shrieked, realizing what was happening. It's not yours either. Ben's voice emerged from Exoskull's mouth, distorted and strained. It's alive, suffering. The creature convulsed violently, its form shifting between various states as Ben's possession disrupted the genetic stability Animo had forced upon it. Crystalline sections reverted to flesh, then ignited with flame, then grew fur, a chaotic expression of the multiple DNA strands fighting for dominance. It's destabilizing. Animo cried in alarm. The possession is accelerating genetic breakdown. Everyone clear the room, Natasha ordered, grabbing Animo roughly. Now. Clint didn't argue, helping Natasha drag the protesting scientist toward the exit as Exoskull's convulsions grew more violent. The creature was literally coming apart at the seams, its forced hybridization collapsing under the stress of Ben's possession. Ben. Natasha called back. Disengage. Ghost Freak emerged from the deteriorating creature, looking surprisingly shaken for a being without clear facial expressions. It wanted to die, he said quietly. It was in constant pain from the conflicting DNA. As if to confirm his words, Exoskull let out a final, almost relieved roar before its unstable form literally dissolved, reverting to the component genetic material Animo had used to create it. Ben reverted to human form, looking disturbed by the experience. That was intense. You okay? Clint asked, genuine concern in his usually sardonic voice. Yeah, Ben nodded after a moment. Just weird, feeling what it felt. Animo's a monster. A monster who's going to tell us everything he knows about Vilgax's operation, Natasha stated, tightening her grip on the scientist. Animo laughed nervously. I'm afraid I don't know much. My benefactor was quite careful about compartmentalizing information. We'll see about that, Natasha replied with a smile that made Animo pale considerably. The battle in the main section of the facility was winding down when they arrived. The remains of mechanical drones littered the floor, though several Avengers bore minor injuries from the encounter. These were more advanced than the prototype we faced earlier, Tony noted, examining a partially intact drone head. Faster adaptation, more aggressive countermeasures. We got Animo, Natasha reported, shoving the scientist forward. And shut down his genetic experiments. Temporarily inconvenienced, Animo corrected with disturbing cheerfulness. The data is the important part, and that's already been transmitted. Transmitted where? Steve demanded. Animo smiled enigmatically. To the future. Before anyone could question him further, the facility's lights flickered, and a holographic projection appeared in the center of the room. The imposing figure of Vilgax materialized, his armor more streamlined and technologically advanced than when they'd last encountered him. Avengers, the warlord greeted, his tentacled face betraying no emotion. And Ben Tennyson. How you've grown. Ben stepped forward, instinctively reaching for the Omnitrix. Not enough small talk in space. Had to call just to chat. Vilgax's eyes narrowed slightly. Your humor remains as primitive as your understanding. Dr. Animo's work was merely one component of a much larger design. The Ultron drones, Tony interjected. You're using his code to try to overcome the Omnitrix's security. A simplified assessment, but essentially correct, Vilgax acknowledged. The adaptive capabilities of your creation, combined with mechamorph technology, create interesting possibilities. Whatever you're planning, it won't work, Steve stated firmly. We stopped you before, we'll stop you again. Vilgax seemed almost amused. You misunderstand. This is not a confrontation, it is a demonstration. The hologram expanded, showing multiple locations around the world. In each, a device similar to the ice generators from Antarctica activated, but instead of cold, they released pulses of energy that transformed the surrounding environment. Plants mutated, soil changed composition, even the air seemed to shimmer with alien particulates. Behold the first stage of terraforming, Vilgax announced. Earth's atmosphere and biosphere being recalibrated to more suitable parameters. Suitable for what? Ben demanded, though he feared he already knew the answer. For the chimera sui generis, Vilgax replied. My species. This world will become our new home. There are billions of people already living here, Bruce pointed out, anger edging his voice. What happens to them in your plan? Vilgax waved dismissively. Those who can adapt will serve. Those who cannot will perish. The natural order of conquest. Not while we're here, Thor declared, Mjolnir crackling with lightning. Your presence was anticipated, Vilgax continued unperturbed. In fact, it is integral to the final phase. The hologram shifted to show a massive orbital platform, clearly of alien design but incorporating technology reminiscent of Ultron's aesthetics. The Chimerian hammer, Vilgax explained. Currently in stationary orbit above your planet. Equipped with 1,000 terraforming modules ready to deploy worldwide. But its true purpose is more specific. The image zoomed in on a central chamber containing a device that looked disturbingly like the quantum amplifier they'd recovered from the cerebrocrustacean ship, but massively upscaled and modified. A quantum receiver, Tony realized. You're going to try to access the codon stream remotely. Not try, Stark. Succeed. Vilgax's confidence was chilling. The terraforming process is creating a worldwide network of quantum entanglement nodes. Within 24 hours, they will form a capture field that will extract the Omnitrix's connection to the codon stream and redirect it to my ship. That's impossible, Ben protested. The biometric lock will be overwhelmed, Vilgax finished. Your DNA signature can be replicated with sufficient computational power, something the Ultron architecture excels at. Every transformation you undergo accelerates the process, providing more data for the quantum matrix. Ben instinctively stepped back, looking at the Omnitrix with new concern. Each time he transformed to fight the drones or Exoskull, he'd been unwittingly helping Vilgax's plan. Why tell us this? Natasha asked, her analytical mind cutting to the heart of the matter. Why reveal your strategy? Vilgax's expression shifted to something like satisfaction. Because you cannot stop it. The process has begun. The quantum entanglement is self-sustaining. And to shut it down would require disabling every node simultaneously, a logistical impossibility even for the Avengers. We've overcome impossible odds before, Steve replied steadily. Indeed. Your determination is commendable, if futile. Vilgax's hologram began to fade. 24 hours, Avengers. Then a new era begins for your world. The hologram disappeared, leaving the team in stunned silence. Please tell me someone has a plan, Clint finally said. First things first, Fury's voice came through their communicators. Extract with the prisoner. We need everything Animo knows. Already on it, Natasha replied, securing Animo for transport. And Ben, Fury added, no more transformations until we understand exactly what Vilgax is doing with that data. Ben nodded grimly, looking down at the Omnitrix. For the first time since he'd found it, the device felt like a liability rather than an asset. Back at Avengers Tower, the situation rapidly evolved from bad to worse. Reports came in from around the world of terraforming nodes activating in remote locations, mountaintops, deserts, deep forests, even underwater. Satellite imagery confirms 37 active nodes, Hill reported, bringing up a global map in the command center. And we're detecting energy signatures consistent with at least 40 more preparing to activate. The environmental effects are accelerating, Bruce added, reviewing data from affected areas. Oxygen content decreasing, introduction of unknown elements to the atmosphere, rapid mutation of local flora. What about fauna? People? Steve asked. Bruce's expression was grim. Limited exposure seems manageable. Prolonged exposure, the effects appear cumulative and eventually fatal to Earth life. How do we shut them down? Ben asked. That's the problem, Tony replied, manipulating a holographic model of one of the nodes. They're utilizing the quantum entanglement effect Vilgax mentioned. Each node is connected to all others at the quantum level. Destroy one, and the others compensate instantly. So we need to hit them all at once, Clint concluded. Like Vilgax said, logistically impossible. Not necessarily impossible, Fury corrected, entering with Max Tennyson. Just extremely difficult. Max activated a display showing the plumber's insignia. We've contacted all active plumber agents and allies worldwide. Combined with SHIELD resources and the Avengers, we could potentially target a significant percentage of the nodes simultaneously. But not all of them, Natasha pointed out. And Vilgax said we need to hit every single one. Actually, Gwen spoke up from her workstation, I think there might be another approach. She brought up her own display, showing magical symbols overlaid with the node network. The quantum entanglement Vilgax is using operates on principles similar to certain forms of magical connectivity. You're suggesting a magical solution? Steve asked, looking skeptical but open-minded after a year of working with increasingly diverse types of powers. Not by itself, Gwen clarified. But combined with technology, yes. The nodes are connected. That's their strength, but it could also be their weakness. Tony caught on immediately. A cascading shutdown. If we could introduce the right kind of interference pattern to the quantum field, it would propagate through all connected nodes, Bruce finished excitedly. Like a virus. Exactly, Gwen nodded. But we'd need something that could interface directly with the quantum field. Something that already has a connection to it. All eyes turned to Ben, specifically, to the Omnitrix on his wrist. Hold on, Steve raised a hand. Are we suggesting using the very thing Vilgax is trying to capture as our primary countermeasure? It's risky, Max acknowledged. But potentially our only option given the timeframe. And it would require Ben to transform, Natasha noted. Which Fury just ordered him not to do because it feeds data to Vilgax. A calculated risk, Fury replied, having listened silently until now. If the alternative is worldwide terraforming and the loss of the Omnitrix anyway, I'm open to suggestions. Ben looked at the Omnitrix thoughtfully. What if we could use the quantum amplifier we recovered? Turn Vilgax's own tech against him. The amplifier. Bruce's eyes widened. Of course. It was designed to interface with the codon stream. If we could modify it to generate a counter-frequency to the terraforming network. We could use it to transmit the shutdown command through the quantum field, Tony continued, ideas flowing rapidly. But we'd need to connect it directly to the network. Which means getting it to one of the nodes, Max concluded. Or, Ben suggested, getting it to the source. The Chimerian hammer. A heavy silence fell over the room as everyone processed the implication of his suggestion. You want to take the fight directly to Vilgax, Steve stated. On his ship. In orbit. Ben nodded firmly. It makes the most sense. The ship is controlling the whole network. If we can disrupt it there, at the source, we have the best chance of shutting everything down at once. It's a suicide mission, Clint said bluntly. Not necessarily, Tony countered, already running calculations. I've been working on a space-capable armor since our last encounter with Vilgax. It could potentially transport a small team to the Chimerian hammer. How small? Steve asked. 3, maybe 4 people maximum, Tony admitted. And even then, it's pushing the limits. I have to go, Ben stated firmly. The Omnitrix is the key to interfacing with the quantum field. I should go as well, Tony added. Someone needs to operate the modified amplifier. And you'll need magical support to stabilize the quantum interference, Gwen interjected. That means me. Absolutely not, Max and Ben said simultaneously. This isn't up for debate, Gwen replied, her expression determined. My magical abilities are essential for this plan to work. Doctor Strange is off-world dealing with some interdimensional crisis. It has to be me. She's right, Bruce confirmed reluctantly after reviewing the calculations. The plan requires 3 components working in perfect synchronization, the Omnitrix as the connection to the codon stream, the modified amplifier to generate the counter-frequency, and a magical stabilizer to prevent the quantum field from collapsing prematurely. Which leaves one spot on the team, Steve said, looking around the room. It should be Romanoff, Fury interrupted. This is an infiltration mission requiring stealth and adaptability, not a frontal assault. Natasha nodded, accepting the assignment without hesitation. We'll need a tactical plan for once we're aboard. Layout, security systems, contingencies. Already working on it, Max replied, bringing up what limited schematics they had of Vilgax's ship. The plumbers have encountered Chimera Sway generous vessels before. They follow certain design principles we can anticipate. As the planning intensified, Ben found himself both excited and terrified. This would be his biggest mission yet, potentially saving the entire planet while facing his most dangerous enemy on the warlord's home turf. And Gwen would be there too, putting herself in danger partly because of him and the Omnitrix. He glanced at his cousin, who was deep in conversation with Bruce about the magical components of their plan. Despite all their bickering and competition, he had to admit she'd grown into a formidable hero in her own right. Maybe it was time he told her that. Hey, he said, approaching her during a brief lull in the preparations. You sure about this? Vilgax is no joke. Gwen gave him a look that managed to be both exasperated and affectionate. After a year of watching you throw yourself into danger, you think I'm going to back down from saving the world? Not a chance, doofus. Just checking, Ben shrugged, then added more seriously, you know, your magic stuff is pretty cool. Like, legitimately impressive. She blinked, surprised by the genuine compliment. Thanks. Your aliens aren't completely lame either, I guess. High praise coming from you, Ben grinned. Just don't get in my way up there. More likely I'll be saving your butt, Gwen retorted, but she was smiling too. Like always. In your dreams, dweeb. The familiar banter felt comforting amid the tension of planning what could be their most dangerous mission yet. Whatever happened on the Chimerian hammer, Ben was glad Gwen would be there, not that he'd ever admit it out loud. The next 12 hours were a blur of preparation. Tony worked tirelessly on modifying both his space armor and the quantum amplifier, while Bruce and Gwen developed the magical technological interface needed for the quantum disruption. Max coordinated with plumber agents worldwide to gather intelligence on the terraforming nodes and their effects. Reports were increasingly concerning. Areas around active nodes were becoming uninhabitable for Earth life, with evacuation zones expanding hourly. Natasha immersed herself in the tactical aspects, developing infiltration strategies based on the limited intelligence they had about the Chimerian Hammer's layout and security systems. Ben spent the time alternating between training sessions and mandatory rest periods that Steve insisted upon. "You'll need to be at your best up there," the captain had explained. "That means proper sleep and nutrition, not pushing yourself to exhaustion beforehand." Finally, the moment arrived. The modified space armor stood ready in the launch bay, the quantum amplifier secured in a specialized containment unit designed to protect it during the journey. "The plan is straightforward," Tony explained during the final briefing. "The armor will transport us to the Chimerian Hammer using a stealth approach. Once aboard, we locate the central control chamber where Vilgax is operating the quantum receiver. I'll secure our infiltration route and handle any resistance," Natasha continued. "Ben and Gwen will escort Tony and the amplifier to the control chamber. Once there, we connect the amplifier to the ship's systems," Tony added. "Ben interfaces with it through the Omnitrix while Gwen stabilizes the quantum field with her magic. If all goes well, the disruption cascades through the entire network, shutting down all terraforming nodes simultaneously." "And if Vilgax interferes?" Fury asked pointedly. "We have contingencies," Natasha replied without elaborating, though her expression suggested those contingencies were likely lethal. "Remember," Steve addressed Ben and Gwen directly, "your priority is the mission. Personal feelings, rivalries, vendettas, none of that matters compared to shutting down the terraforming network. Understood?" "Yes, sir," they replied in unison, with unusual solemnity. Max approached his grandchildren, his expression a mixture of pride and concern. "You two watch out for each other up there. Vilgax is dangerous, but so is the quantum technology he's using. Don't take unnecessary risks." "We won't, Grandpa," Gwen assured him. "Hero time, not reckless time," Ben added with a small smile. "I've learned that much this past year." Max pulled them both into a tight hug. "Your parents would be proud," he said quietly. "I know I am." The moment was interrupted by Tony's announcement, T-10 minutes to launch. "Suit up, everyone." The specialized space armor was designed to fit all 4 team members within its expanded frame. Tony would pilot from the central position, with the others secured in compartments that would protect them during the journey to orbit. As Ben prepared to enter his designated section, he caught Steve watching him with an unreadable expression. "Something wrong, Cap?" he asked. Steve shook his head slightly. "Just remembering what you were like when you first joined us. Overexcited kid with an alien watch, wanting to be a hero without understanding what that really meant. And now?" "Now," Steve smiled, "you're still excited, still young, but you're also a hero in your own right. Not because of the Omnitrix, but because of who you've become while wearing it." Coming from Captain America, there was perhaps no higher praise. Ben felt a surge of emotion that threatened to undermine his attempt to appear cool and collected before the mission. "Thanks," he managed. "For everything. The training, the chances, the trust, all of it." Steve nodded, extending his hand. Ben shook it firmly, the gesture feeling like a passing of some invisible torch. "Good luck up there, Avenger," Steve said. "Bring everyone home safe." Ben nodded, suddenly unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He climbed into his compartment in the space armor, settling into position as the systems activated around him. "Everyone secure?" Tony's voice came through the internal comms. "Ready," Natasha confirmed. "As I'll ever be," Gwen added. "Let's do this," Ben said, his determination overriding his nervousness. The launch bay doors opened above them, revealing the night sky. The armor's propulsion systems engaged, lifting them smoothly upward with increasing acceleration. "Next stop, outer space," Tony announced as they shot skyward, Earth falling away beneath them with breathtaking speed. And one very unfriendly alien warship. The journey to orbit was simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. Ben had been in space before during his year with the Avengers, but never quite like this, rocketing upward at tremendous speed, the atmosphere thinning around them until the stars no longer twinkled and Earth curved visibly below. Chimerian hammer detected, Tony reported, his voice professionally calm despite the tension. Initiating stealth protocols. The armor's external systems reconfigured, absorbing energy signatures and reflecting radar to create a minimal detection profile. They approached the massive alien vessel from below, using Earth as a backdrop to further mask their approach. "That thing is huge," Gwen murmured, her first clear view of Vilgax's ship coming through the armor's external feeds. "It must be at least a mile long." 1.3 miles, Tony corrected. "With enough firepower to level a continent, based on our scans." "Comforting," Natasha remarked dryly. "Any sign they've detected us?" "Negative. Their attention appears focused on maintaining the terraforming network." Tony adjusted their trajectory slightly. Approaching designated entry point. The entry point was a maintenance airlock identified in the plumber schematics as potentially vulnerable to external override. As they neared it, Tony deployed specialized tools from the armor's framework, working to bypass the alien security measures. "This would be easier with upgrade," Ben noted, eyeing the Omnitrix. "I could just merge with the system and open it from inside." "And alert Vilgax instantly to our presence," Natasha reminded him. "The Omnitrix stays inactive until we reach the control chamber." After several tense minutes, Tony succeeded in triggering the outer airlock door. The armor slipped inside the small chamber, which cycled through a decontamination sequence before the inner door opened. "We're in," Tony announced, the armor reconfiguring to allow its passengers to exit. Switching to infiltration mode. The 4 team members emerged into a dimly lit corridor, the armor collapsing into a more compact form that Tony could wear while still carrying the quantum amplifier. Natasha immediately took point, weapons ready as she checked for hostiles. "Clear," she reported quietly. "But I'm detecting movement 2 junctions ahead. Mechanical signatures, likely security drones. Can we bypass them?" Gwen asked, her hands glowing softly with prepared magical energy. Natasha consulted the schematic displayed on her tactical device. "This way. Maintenance shafts should run parallel to our route." They moved efficiently through the alien vessel, using service corridors and ventilation systems to avoid patrolling drones. The ship's interior was a strange blend of organic-looking structures and advanced technology, with pulsing energy conduits running along walls that seemed almost alive. "The design incorporates living components," Tony observed, scanning their surroundings. "The ship is partially sentient." "Creepy," Ben muttered, resisting the urge to transform at every suspicious sound. Being aboard his enemy's flagship without access to his powers left him feeling exposed and vulnerable. They encountered their first real obstacle at a security checkpoint blocking access to the ship's central sections. 2 massive, cybernetically enhanced guards monitored a scanning gate that would immediately detect unauthorized personnel. "We need a distraction," Natasha whispered, assessing the situation from their hidden vantage point. "I could use a small spell," Gwen suggested. "Create an energy fluctuation elsewhere to draw them away." "Too risky," Tony countered. "Any magical energy might be detected by the ship's systems. We need something more conventional." Natasha smiled slightly, removing 2 tiny devices from her equipment. "Old school it is." She slid the devices across the floor, where they came to rest on opposite sides of the checkpoint. Seconds later, they emitted synchronized electromagnetic pulses that temporarily disrupted the nearby systems, including the guard's cybernetic components. "Move, now." Natasha ordered as the guard stumbled, temporarily disoriented. They sprinted through the checkpoint during the brief window of opportunity, reaching the other side just as the systems began to reset. An alarm started to sound, but Tony quickly interfaced with a control panel, isolating that section to prevent the alert from spreading. That was close, Ben breathed. Too close, Natasha agreed. Our window of stealth is closing. We need to pick up the pace. According to their intelligence, the central control chamber was located in the heart of the ship, surrounded by multiple layers of security. As they penetrated deeper into the vessel, signs of the terraforming operation became evident, displays showing Earth with expanding zones of alien influence, monitoring stations tracking the quantum entanglement network, and increased activity from both drones and living crew members. We're getting close, Tony reported, checking the modified amplifier's readings. I'm detecting quantum resonance patterns consistent with the terraforming nodes. The central receiver must be nearby. They reached a massive set of doors, clearly the entrance to the control chamber. Energized guards flanked the entrance, along with advanced security systems that would be impossible to bypass undetected. End of the stealth portion of our mission, Natasha concluded. From here, we go loud. Ben looked at the Omnitrix eagerly. Finally. Time to, wait, Gwen interrupted, her expression concerned. Something's wrong. The quantum readings are fluctuating. Tony checked his own instruments, frowning. She's right. The entanglement field is destabilizing. Almost as if, the massive doors suddenly opened on their own, revealing the control chamber beyond. Vilgax stood at its center, surrounded by technology that pulsed with ominous energy. Behind him, a massive viewport showed Earth, partially obscured by a growing web of green energy connecting the terraforming nodes. As if he knew we were coming, Tony finished grimly. Avengers, Vilgax greeted them, his voice eerily calm. And Tennyson's. Right on schedule. You were expecting us, Natasha stated, weapons raised but clearly recognizing the tactical disadvantage they faced. Of course, Vilgax replied, gesturing to displays showing their entire approach. From the moment you launched from Earth. Did you truly believe your primitive stealth technology could deceive my sensors? Then why let us get this far? Ben demanded, hand hovering over the Omnitrix. Vilgax's face tentacles twitched in what might have been amusement. Because you've brought exactly what I need directly to me. The Omnitrix, a quantum amplifier, and even an anodite to stabilize the process. Your plan to disrupt my network has saved me considerable effort in acquiring the final components. He let us in, Tony realized. This was a trap from the beginning. Not a trap, Vilgax corrected. An invitation. One you predictably accepted. With a gesture from the warlord, energy fields sprang up around Tony, Natasha, and Gwen, immobilizing them where they stood. Only Ben remained free, standing alone before his nemesis. I could have captured you as well, Vilgax explained, stepping closer to Ben. But I preferred to offer you a choice. What choice? Ben asked warily. Join me willingly, Vilgax proposed. Allow me access to the Omnitrix and the codon stream. In return, your friends will be spared, and portions of Earth will be preserved as habitable zones for humans who accept my rule. Or watch as I take what I want by force, destroy your friends, and complete the terraforming of your world with no concessions. Ben glanced at his trapped teammates. Tony was already working on disrupting the energy field around him, but making little progress. Natasha had gone completely still, clearly waiting for the right moment to act. Gwen was staring at Ben with fierce determination, subtly shaking her head. Some choice, Ben replied, turning back to Vilgax. But here's another option, I kick your butt, free my friends, and shut down your terraforming network for good. Vilgax sighed, almost regretfully. Still so human, despite everything you've experienced. Very well. We proceed with the alternative approach. He activated controls on his gauntlet, and a massive device descended from the ceiling, the quantum receiver, now pulsing with increasing energy. Simultaneously, the displays showing Earth revealed the terraforming process accelerating, green energy spreading across continents. The final phase begins, Vilgax announced. With or without your cooperation. Ben didn't hesitate. He activated the Omnitrix, transforming into Diamond Head. His crystalline form glittered in the alien light as he charged Vilgax, launching crystal shards ahead of him. So predictable, Vilgax remarked, his upgraded armor easily deflecting the projectiles. Every transformation now feeds more data to my system. You accelerate your own defeat. We'll see about that. Ben retorted, creating a massive crystal blade from his arm and swinging it at Vilgax. The warlord caught the blade with one hand, then struck Ben with enough force to crack his crystalline body and send him flying across the chamber. Ben crashed into a control panel, shattering it on impact. Your training with the Avengers has improved your technique, Vilgax observed. But the fundamental limitation remains, you are still a child playing with power you cannot fully comprehend. Ben struggled to his feet, his diamond head form already regenerating the cracks. Maybe. But this child has kicked your butt before. He slammed his hands into the floor, sending a wave of crystal spikes racing toward Vilgax. The warlord leapt over them with surprising agility, landing directly in front of Ben and seizing him by the throat. Each defeat has taught me, Vilgax said, lifting Ben effortlessly. Can you say the same? Ben hit the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming into Heat Blast. His fiery form burned hot enough to force Vilgax to release him, the warlord's armor smoking from the contact. I've learned plenty. Ben shouted, unleashing a torrent of flames. Like how to keep you talking while my team works. Indeed, Tony had made progress on disrupting his containment field, his armor reconfiguring to emit a counter-frequency. Gwen's hands moved in subtle patterns, pink energy barely visible as she worked a spell despite her imprisonment. Vilgax seemed unconcerned, activating a shield on his gauntlet that parted the flames harmlessly around him. Their efforts are futile. And your transformations only strengthen my connection to the Omnitrix. As if to prove his point, the quantum receiver pulsed in sync with the Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest, creating a visible energy connection between them. Ben felt it, a strange pulling sensation, as if something essential was being drawn from him. What are you doing? He gasped, his flames flickering erratically. Extracting the quantum signature of your connection to the codon stream, Vilgax explained. With each transformation, I gain more of the pattern needed to replicate your biometric key. Ben transformed again, becoming XLR-8, hoping speed might allow him to disrupt the machinery around them. He raced around the chamber at blinding velocity, striking at vulnerable points identified during their planning sessions. But Vilgax anticipated this, activating floor panels that emitted energy fields tuned specifically to XLR-8's vibration frequency. Ben stumbled, his superspeed suddenly failing as the specialized countermeasures took effect. I studied all your forms after our encounters, Vilgax explained. Developed specific countermeasures for each. There is nothing you can transform into that I am not prepared for. Ben hit the Omnitrix again, cycling rapidly through forms. 4 arms. Ghost Freak. Upgrade. Gray Matter. Wild Mutt. With each transformation, the quantum receiver pulsed more strongly, the connection to the Omnitrix growing more visible and substantial. Yes. Vilgax exclaimed, watching the process with satisfaction. Continue transforming. Each change completes more of the quantum pattern. Ben realized his mistake too late. In trying to find a form Vilgax wasn't prepared for, he'd given the warlord exactly what he wanted, multiple transformation data points to analyze and extract. He reverted to human form, breathing hard and feeling strangely drained. The pattern is nearly complete, Vilgax announced, turning to the controls. Soon, the codon stream will be mine to command. Ben. Gwen called out, her containment field weakening as her spell took effect. The amplifier. It's our only chance. The quantum amplifier had fallen near Tony's imprisoned form when the trap was sprung. It lay on the floor, apparently forgotten in the chaos of battle. Ben lunged for it, but Vilgax moved with surprising speed, intercepting him and throwing him across the room again. A desperate ploy, the warlord scoffed. The amplifier cannot help you now. My system is already synchronized with the Omnitrix's quantum signature. Ben struggled to his feet, feeling weaker with each passing moment. The connection between the Omnitrix and the quantum receiver was draining him somehow, not just taking data but energy as well. Maybe not, Ben admitted, glancing at the fallen amplifier. But I'm not out of tricks yet. He activated the Omnitrix one more time, cycling to a silhouette he had used rarely, the massive, planet-eating form of Upchuck. As the transformation took hold, Ben immediately began consuming everything he could reach, pieces of broken control panels, small components, even energy discharges from damaged systems. What are you doing? Vilgax demanded, suddenly concerned. Ben's Upchuck form expanded as he consumed more material, converting it to energy within his multiple stomachs. Something unpredictable. He projectile vomited a massive energy blast directly at Vilgax, the concentrated power enough to momentarily overwhelm even the warlord's advanced shields. Vilgax staggered backward, his armor smoking from the impact. Taking advantage of the distraction, Tony finally broke free from his containment field, immediately moving to release Natasha and Gwen. The amplifier. Ben called out, continuing to bombard Vilgax with energy blasts to keep him pinned down. Tony grabbed the device, quickly assessing its condition. It's damaged but functional. We need to connect it to the main system. On it. Natasha moved with deadly efficiency, securing their position while Tony worked to interface the amplifier with the ship's controls. Gwen joined Ben in containing Vilgax, her magic forming barriers to reinforce Ben's attacks. Whatever you're planning, do it fast, she shouted to Tony. The quantum field is reaching critical stability. Displays around the chamber showed the terraforming network covering most of Earth now, the green web of energy nearly complete. At various points, the alien environment had spread several miles from the nodes, rendering those areas completely uninhabitable for Earth life. Almost there, Tony called back, making final connections between the amplifier and the ship systems. Ben. We need the Omnitrix to complete the circuit. Ben tried to disengage from his battle with Vilgax, but the warlord had recovered from the initial surprise and was now fighting back with renewed fury. You will not interfere. Vilgax roared, striking with enough force to send both Ben and Gwen flying despite her magical shields. Natasha intervened, using specialized weapons to target weaknesses in Vilgax's armor, joints, cooling vents, sensor arrays. The precision attacks didn't cause major damage but created enough distraction for Ben to break away. Go. Natasha ordered, continuing her harassment tactics. I'll keep him busy. Ben raced to Tony's position, reverting to human form as he reached the modified amplifier. What do I do? Place the Omnitrix on this interface, Tony instructed, indicating a connection point he had adapted. The amplifier will use your biometric signature to generate a counterfrequency to the quantum field. And that will shut down the terraforming? In theory, yes, Tony replied with typical understatement. It should create a cascading failure throughout the network. Ben didn't hesitate, pressing the Omnitrix against the interface. Immediately, the device began to glow with intense green energy, interfacing with the amplifier in ways they hadn't fully anticipated. It's working. Gwen called out, monitoring the quantum field with her magical senses while maintaining a shield around them. The disruption is spreading through the network. On the displays, the green web covering Earth began to flicker and destabilize, nodes going dark as the counter-frequency propagated through the quantum entanglement. Vilgax roared in fury, throwing Natasha aside and charging toward them. No. You will not ruin years of planning. Too late, Tony replied, his armor reconfiguring to combat mode. It's already happening. The warlord reached them just as the disruption reached critical mass. The quantum receiver above began to spark and smoke, overloading from the conflicting signals. Throughout the ship, systems flickered and failed as the cascading effect spread. You've doomed yourself as well, Vilgax warned, grappling with Tony while trying to reach Ben and the amplifier. When the quantum field collapses, the feedback will destroy this ship, and everyone aboard it. Already thought of that, Tony grunted, his armor straining against Vilgax's superior strength. Natasha. Extraction protocol activated, she confirmed, triggering a device on her belt. 30 seconds to teleport lock. Ben realized with shock that they had anticipated this possibility, a self-extraction plan if the mission went sideways. But something was wrong. The Omnitrix was still connected to the amplifier, its energy pulsing more erratically as the quantum field destabilized. "I can't disconnect," he shouted, trying to pull away but finding the Omnitrix seemingly fused to the interface. "It's stuck." Gwen rushed to his side, examining the connection with growing alarm. "The quantum entanglement has created a feedback loop. If we break it forcibly, the entire disruption could fail." 20 seconds to teleport, Natasha announced, rejoining them as systems around the chamber began to explode from power surges. Vilgax broke free from Tony's grip, throwing the armored Avenger across the room. "You failed," he declared, advancing on Ben and the amplifier. "Even if you destroy my ship, the terraforming will continue. The process is self-sustaining now." "Not if we complete the disruption," Ben replied, a plan forming in his mind. He looked at Gwen, then at Tony and Natasha. "Get ready to teleport." "Ben, what are you?" Gwen began, her eyes widening as she realized what he was planning. "No. There has to be another way." "There isn't," Ben said firmly. "The Omnitrix is the key to the whole thing. It needs to stay connected until the disruption is complete." "Then we all stay," Tony declared, rejoining them. 10 seconds, Natasha warned. "No," Ben shook his head. "Earth needs the Avengers. And Vilgax is right, when this thing goes, the whole ship goes with it." Vilgax laughed darkly, still approaching despite the chaos erupting around them. "A noble sacrifice, Tennyson. But futile. I will simply rebuild." "Not this time," Ben replied with surprising calm. He reached for the Omnitrix with his free hand, accessing a function they had discovered during their work with the quantum amplifier, a reset protocol that would temporarily sever the connection to the codon stream while releasing all stored energy. "Ben, don't." Gwen cried, understanding what he intended. "The feedback could kill you." 5 seconds, Natasha announced, her usually stoic expression showing genuine concern. "Get them out of here," Ben told Tony. "All of them." Tony hesitated, then nodded grimly. He grabbed Gwen, who was still protesting, while Natasha secured her position for teleport. "Ben Tennyson," Vilgax growled, "now just steps away. Always the hero." "Learn from the best," Ben replied with a defiant smile, looking at his teammates, his friends, one last time. The teleport activated, energy enveloping the three Avengers. The last thing Ben saw was Gwen's anguished face as she disappeared in a flash of light. Then he was alone with Vilgax and a ship rapidly tearing itself apart. "Now it's just you and me, squid face," Ben said, his finger hovering over the Omnitrix's reset function. "One last round." Vilgax lunged forward, but Ben was faster. He activated the reset, and the Omnitrix released a blinding surge of energy that connected with the amplifier, completing the disruption sequence in a massive feedback pulse that exploded outward through the quantum field. The last thing Ben felt was the Omnitrix burning white-hot on his wrist as the world dissolved into green light. Vital signs stabilizing. Brain activity normal. "He's coming around." Ben floated back to consciousness slowly, the voices around him gradually becoming clearer. He felt strange, weightless but also heavy, like his body couldn't decide which way was up. "Ben. Can you hear me?" That was Gwen's voice, unusually gentle, without the customary sarcasm. Something must be really wrong if she wasn't calling him doofus. He tried to open his eyes, finding even that simple action surprisingly difficult. When he finally managed it, blurry faces slowly resolved into familiar figures, Gwen, Tony, Steve, and Max all leaning over him with varying expressions of concern. Did we win? Ben croaked, his throat feeling like he'd swallowed sand. Relief washed over their faces. Max placed a hand on Ben's shoulder, squeezing gently. We won, son. The terraforming network collapsed completely. Earth is safe. And Vilgax? The adults exchanged glances. The Chimerian hammer was destroyed in orbit, Tony explained carefully. The quantum feedback created what was essentially a miniature black hole that collapsed almost immediately. Nothing could have survived. Ben tried to process this. Vilgax, gone. After so long, it seemed almost impossible to believe. But how did I? He tried to sit up, only to discover he was in a medical bed surrounded by monitoring equipment. How am I not dead too? That, Bruce said, entering Ben's field of vision, is the fascinating part. The Omnitrix protected you. Ben looked down at his wrist reflexively, and froze. The Omnitrix was there, but completely different. Sleeker, more streamlined, with a different configuration and color scheme. What happened to it? He asked, staring at the transformed device. We're still figuring that out, Bruce admitted. But from what we can tell, the quantum reset combined with the feedback from the amplifier forced the Omnitrix into some kind of emergency reconfiguration mode. It created a protective field around you an instant before the ship's destruction. Shield recovery teams found you floating in orbit, Steve added. Inside what looked like a green energy bubble. When we brought you in, the bubble dissolved, and the Omnitrix looked like that. It seems to have evolved, Tony continued, his scientific curiosity evident despite his concern. Preliminary scans suggest enhanced capabilities, improved energy efficiency, even new transformations potentially available. The Ultimatrix, Max said quietly. Azimuth had theoretical designs for a next-generation version. Somehow, the emergency situation triggered an evolution to that form. Ben stared at the new device, the Ultimatrix, with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. Does it still work the same way? We don't know, Gwen replied. We were waiting for you to wake up before trying anything. The last thing we needed was you turning into some new alien while unconscious. The thought actually made Ben smile weakly. That would be just my luck. How do you feel? Steve asked, professional concern evident in his voice. Like I got hit by a truck, Ben admitted. Then the truck backed up and hit me again. But I'm alive, so, could be worse. You've been unconscious for 3 days, Max informed him. The quantum energy did a number on your system, but you're healing remarkably well. 3 days. Ben let that sink in. 3 days since he'd faced Vilgax for what might have been the final time. 3 days since he'd expected to die to save the Earth. So what now? He asked, looking around at the assembled heroes, his mentors, his family, his team. Now, Fury said, entering the medical bay with his customary dramatic timing, you rest and recover. Then we figure out what that new watch of yours can do. And after that? Ben pressed. Fury exchanged glances with Steve and Tony before responding. After that, we make it official. Make what official? Ben asked, confused. Steve stepped forward, placing something on the bed next to Ben's hand. It was an Avengers ID card, not the provisional one he'd been using for the past year, but a full-fledged member's credential. Your status, Steve said simply. You've more than earned it, Ben. Ben stared at the card, emotions welling up too complex to name. After everything, the training, the battles, the growth, the sacrifices, here it was. Official recognition of what he'd become. I don't know what to say, he admitted, his voice rough with feeling. You don't need to say anything, Tony replied with uncharacteristic gentleness. Your actions already did the talking. Gwen, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. Just promise not to let it go to your head. You're still a doofus, Avenger or not. Ben laughed, wincing slightly at the pain in his ribs. Wouldn't dream of it, dweeb. The familiar exchange seemed to break the tension in the room. As the others began discussing recovery timelines and testing protocols for the Ultimatrix, Ben found himself looking at Max, who watched him with unmistakable pride. "Grandpa," Ben said quietly, "thank you. For everything. For being there when the Omnitrix found me. For telling me about the plumbers. For calling Fury. All of it." Max smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "I always knew you were destined for something extraordinary, Ben. Even before that watch fell from the sky. I just helped point you in the right direction." "Still," Ben insisted, "I wouldn't be here without you. I wouldn't be, me." Max squeezed his grandson's shoulder again. "The watch chose well," he said simply. As the conversation continued around him, Ben found himself thinking about the incredible journey of the past year. From an impulsive kid who saw the Omnitrix as the coolest toy ever, to a hero who understood the responsibility that came with such power. From a solo act to a team player. From a child to, well, not quite an adult, but something in between. He looked at the Ultimatrix, wondering what new adventures it would bring. What new aliens it might contain. What new threats might emerge to challenge Earth and its defenders. Whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. He had the Avengers, not just as mentors now, but as equals, as teammates, as friends. He had Gwen, whose own journey from annoying cousin to powerful ally mirrored his own growth. He had Max, whose guidance had shaped him from the beginning. And he had himself, Ben Tennyson. Wielder of the Ultimatrix. Defender of Earth. Avenger. The watch might have chosen him by chance that fateful summer night, but what he'd done with that chance had been his choice. His responsibility. His hero time. And as he looked around at the faces of Earth's mightiest heroes, now officially his team, Ben knew with absolute certainty, it was just beginning. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.